You are a national master, but you never dare to participate in court politics, because once exposed as a priest who knows nothing, you will face severe legal sanctions. When the civil and military officials of the whole court accuse and scold you as a fraud, Emperor Datong not only does not believe it, but also loudly rebukes. How dare you? My national teacher is clearly a true immortal, even to let you snatch the enemy country's queen to be his wife, offering 3,000 beauties that he doesn't even look at to serve you, just to let you show your supernatural powers once. Although the outside world sings your praises and miracles, you are worried about how to get through a day without being exposed. At this time in the Grand Hall, civil and military officials were divided on both sides, whispering and discussing. Emperor Hong, who had been diligent in governing, was getting old after all. Otherwise, why would he ask the princes to seek outsiders for the elixir of immortality, and even want to appoint the prince who truly cultivated as the crown prince of Datong? Crown prince is the foundation of a country. How can we treat it as a child's play? When observing the various princes brought by the diviners, he did not hide his disgust. The black smoke billowed, snakes and insects wriggled, the atmosphere was chaotic, and each one looked suspicious with twisted necks and slanted eyes. They did not seem like good people. What kind of true cultivation is this? Clearly a group of demons. But when everyone saw the Taoist in the ink-colored robe next to the sixth prince, they couldn't help but sigh in unison. What an elegant and refined beauty. The young Taoist was handsome and beautiful, with a fairy-like aura all around him, as if he were a celestial being descended to earth. At the same time, the old man who was being praised by a group of old men in the ink-robed Taoist just shivered. I opened my eyes, slowly woke up, and looked around in confusion at the unfamiliar surroundings. The magnificent palace. After a while, I finally realized that I had traveled through. Just as I regained my composure, a surge of unfamiliar memories rushed in, causing my vision to darken and almost fall. The current sixth prince, Li Ningji, who was standing by, hurriedly supported him and asked nervously, Sir, Mr. Gu, are you feeling unwell? I will immediately order someone to summon the Imperial physician. He couldn't be blamed for being flustered. In early March, Emperor Hong suddenly ordered 9 princes to go to the common people to find accomplished Taoist practitioners. However, the sixth prince, Li Ningji, was introverted and had no capable subordinates. He was alone with a few guards, and he had been inquiring all the way without any results. Until the day before yesterday, I heard that there is a mountain called Xuan Mountain dozens of miles north of the capital. There is a famous Mr. Gu who is proficient in Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Recently, he has been meditating and enlightening on the mountain. After learning about this, Li Ningji rushed to Xuan Mountain overnight and invited him out of the mountain after 3 visits. If my physical discomfort delays the matter, I'm afraid his father will be angry again. After I regained my strength, I pretended to smile gently and waved my hand lightly, saying, It's okay, Prince, you worry too much. In fact, I am very anxious now. Oh no, I have traveled back in time and become a Taoist priest, and I am about to deceive the emperor. The experience of meeting the sixth prince with the original body is indeed as mentioned before, but a key point was missed. This is a carefully planned scam. The original body conspired with someone to spread rumors in the capital city, and when they encountered a young and wealthy nobleman with obvious mental issues, they falsely claimed that there was a real person on Mount Xuan, and they would definitely make a big profit. How could I have imagined that I would deceive the sixth prince of the current dynasty on my first try? Before the original body could recover from the shock of the prince being a fool, I was informed that I would have to face the emperor next. The more I thought about entering the Changha Hall, the more scared I became. My heart trembled, and I fainted on the spot. I will take over this situation. Right now, I am roaring inside. Does this person have no self-awareness? Sixth prince, why can't you be a little smarter? Stay calm. It is crucial to stay calm. There are many tricks in the Datong criminal law. I must not let them find out that I am a fraudster. Adjusting my expression, I discreetly scanned the true cultivators brought by the princes one by one, with a black mist surrounding them, spiritual beasts resembling snakes and insects, mysterious spells, and each one looking so unique. I couldn't help but nod in approval in my heart. Very well, it seems that all of you powerful individuals are quite capable. I hope you can satisfy the emperor, but please don't make it difficult for a Taoist like me. At this moment, the eunuch deliberately elongated the sharp tone in the palace. The emperor has arrived. The courtiers' faces were solemn, all bowing in unison. Long live the emperor. Long live, long live. As an outsider, I don't need to kneel, but I see the other colleagues making gestures to pay their respects. I also learned to curl up my right thumb, index finger, and ring finger, pinching the 3 fingers together in front of my chest, and slightly bowing while saying, Infinite Heavenly Lord. This posture attracted a bald-headed fool in a brown robe next to me, Who snorted, "Humph, indeed a fraud, daring to deceive the emperor in front of him, truly seeking death. Your excellencies, please rise. Masters and Taoists, please also stand up. Emperor Hong is getting old." His voice is hoarse and low. After clearing his throat, Emperor Hong continued, 10 days ago, I and the princes agreed on a verbal imperial decree. Whoever can find a true cultivator will be the long-awaited crown prince of my great harmony. Today, I invite all of you to witness and see the methods of true cultivation within my great harmony territory. The officials whispered among themselves again. Absurd! Absurd! How can we set a precedent of allowing sorcerers into the court? What kind of system is this? Lord Gong Yang, please persuade His Majesty to stop. Despite the urging of his colleagues behind him, the chief civil official, Prime Minister Gong Yang, remained calm as he held the ivory tablet in his hands and lightly lifted his eyelids. No rush. Whether it's a dragon or a worm, we will know after a try. The emperor smiled and raised his hand to silence the chaotic noise. Looking at His Highness with a calm tone, then let's start with the crown prince. Sire, introduce the Taoist priest you brought here and tell us about his abilities. Li Ning took a step forward, clasped his hands and bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Master Ye, please. The one he called Crow True Man was a middle-aged man, whose head was held high and proud, with a beautiful beard over his chest, a metaphysical cloud-patterned Taoist robe, holding an ebony jade ring floating dust, spitting black mist between breaths. It looked evil and bizarre, not like a righteous person. Real Crow pinched a magic seal and shook the floating dust to take square steps in front of the hall. Your Majesty, the Imperial Prince, and all the Taoists. Then the poor Taoist will make a humble offering. Come and show off your skills in the art of vertical cloud stomping mist. After getting the old emperor's permission, Real Crow instantly puffed up his cheeks and pinched a sword finger up in front of his lips with his right hand. Whoo! Chest and abdomen dropsy. A continuous stream of black smoke spewed out, instantly filled with the body, gathered but not dispersed. Such a strange scene was seen by the crowd. The immortal laws have not yet been performed. Crow Real person suddenly croaked strange cry. Floating dust on the shoulder long sleeve show. Vertical leap up. Actually really light as a crow, floating up and down in the black fog, left and right, tens of breaths. Only then did the toes land lightly and silently. Open your mouth and suck up all the black mist in one breath. With another wave of floating dust and a stroke of his long beard, he really had the demeanor of a few high-profile people. Dedication. The crow realist stood back up, his chest proudly sticking out a few more points. Snap, snap, snap. The one in the dragon chair tapped his palm. Emperor Hong praised. Good. What a great vertical cloud treading fog technique. I guess it's not easy to cultivate, huh? Seol, you have a heart. Li Mingshi could not suppress the joy on his face, but he did not dare to take credit. Just as he was about to move forward to pay his compliments, he heard the pale voice, turn to anger, and a slap on the dragon chair bellowed. A jungle wanderer, playing a few dirty tricks, dares to come to my Chenha temple to cheat? Do you really think that I, Da Tong, am incompetent? Dejai. Take it down for me. The old eunuch who had been waiting under the dragon chair hung his head and said yes. The figure ghostly dissipated and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the crow realist, and raised his 3 fingers like an eagle's claw to catch a rabbit and pinched it into his neck. There was a click of bones, spilling 3 lines of blood. In the blink of an eye, the old eunuch was back on standby under the dragon chair. Everything happened so fast, it was as if he had never moved. Ooh, oh. The crow realist's pupils plummeted before he realized in hindsight that he was scrambling to cover his throat. Blood gurgled from 3 deep holes in his neck. Within a few moments, the crow realist lost all his vitality and fell into a pool of blood with a thud. The unwilling pupils gradually widened. The palace fell into dead silence. Whether it's the ministers, the prince or the rest of the party, one by one, they were so shocked by the sudden change that they couldn't make a sound. Emperor Hong really is as temperamental as the rumors say. One moment he was praising, and the next moment he was spreading blood all over the Chenha temple, and no one knows that Decai, the old eunuch who's been following the emperor around. It was actually an unearthly martial arts expert. Emperor Hiroshi doesn't see any problem with it, although the voice is still kind and gentle, in front of the uncooled bones in front of the temple, but it seems to be very oppressive. And please, mighty men, use some upgraded means. I may be old, but my eyes are still good, so it's not easy to fool around. Shanger, it's your turn. If he had been read his name before, Second Imperial Prince Li Mingsheng would still be excited, but now it was full of nothing but panic. The fact that father no longer speaks a word to big brother proves that the great prince has been kicked out and reduced to a wasted man, especially when Li Mingsheng saw that this higher person he had sought out was shivering throughout his body. It was a moment of realization. Father knows whether there are fairies in the world or not. I'm afraid that this time, The gimmick of finding a high-ranking person and fixing the crown prince was used to knock down the restless forces within the dynasty. That is to say, the small actions that they, the royal sons, did in private, Emperor Hong knew all of them. Thinking of this, Li Mingsheng raised his head tremblingly. He was looking into Hongdi's furious eyes, still majestic and wise despite his age. After Li Mingsheng's mind made a quick calculation, with a clench of his teeth, he fiercely became ferocious. With a scowl on his face, he rose and rushed at the temple guard, drawing his sword as he did so. The 3 feet of green unturned. It stabbed straight at the high person he had brought with him. Tear bloodlines splattered all over the place. Before the tall man could give his name, blood was spilled on the spot. Dang! Li Mingsheng dropped his sword and knelt down to apologize. Father, it is my son who is not able to recognize people. To have allowed this kind of jungle crook to mix into the palace, even though Shang has put him to death, he still does not pay for his sins. I still ask father to chastise him. The seat is full of shock. Tough. Li Mingsheng's move to break his wrist is ruthless and decisive. Looking at the rest of the royals, their cheeks twitched. Why would Shenger do this? Emperor Hong sighed and seemed to be rather disapproving. However, his next sentence said, Shenger is still too reckless. Go down and read the sage's words more and copy them 100 times. It's also good to cultivate your body and mind for future benefits. Upon hearing this, Li Mingsheng was delighted and immediately knelt down to thank the emperor for his grace. The fact that Emperor Hong is willing to say this means that he still has a chance to fight for the throne. Even Emperor Hiroshi was quite pleased with his tactics. Witnessing this scene, which of the remaining princes still did not know the purpose of this trip? Emperor Hongdi wasn't even looking for immortality. Rather, the cults in the territory of Tatung have become a plague, compelling people to be restless. The Fangsher scourged the country, and the people suffered greatly. In some places, there are even signs of rebellion. Emperor Hong is using this as an opportunity to hammer the crowd and re-establish his authority. In front of the civilian ranks, Prime Minister Gong Yang smiled and stroked his beard, nodding repeatedly. Not bad, that's the Hiroshi he knows. There is no such thing as gods and goddesses in this world. Only imperial power can override everything. Publicly beheading this group of godly crooks and swindlers. It's time for the royals to rest from their petty maneuvers with certain people. Didn't wait for Emperor Hiroshi to speak again. The third prince then picked up the bloodstained blade with a quick eye and turned to slash at the monk kneeling on the ground at his side, begging for mercy. There was a flash of cold light and a big, round, good head rolled to the ground. I still ask father to chastise my son. The third prince knelt down with his sword in his hand and asked his father for forgiveness. It ended up getting the same punishment as the second prince. Seeing this, apart from the sixth prince, the rest of the royal princes also had fierce glints in their eyes one by one, aimed at these high rollers who were so respectful not so long ago. The brown-robed, mangy-headed Taoist who was following the fifth prince was sweating coldly. He had felt the killing intent of the sharp edges on his back. If we keep this up, we're going to die. What to do? What do we do? His eyes darted back and forth, suddenly skimming over to Guxian whose face was unperturbed. This guy is still not panicking. Is it possible that he really has something in him? Wait, there's an idea. The mangy-headed Taoist couldn't care less in order to save his life. His heart sped up violently, and the plan came to life. He stepped forward quickly, facing Hiroshi with a half-bow of his back. Your Holiness, the poor Taoist is good at the art of calling out wind and rain. However, without thunder and lightning, it is difficult to do so. I heard that the Taoist friend invited by the sixth prince happens to have practiced the method of dancing thunder and making electricity. I also ask your majesty to be gracious enough to allow the two of us to put on a joint performance. For a moment, the sidelines of the full Chinha hall gathered in unison on Guxian, who was wearing an ink robe. Guxian? It's not. I'm not even close to reacting from the dead guy situation. What are you guys up to? Chapter 2 Inviting the True Immortal. The truth of this Taoist who claimed to be good at calling the winds and calling the rain was not known for the time being. But this hand of woe is extremely well made. It was said that Guxian, who was invited by the sixth prince, was good at dancing thunder and making electricity. If it fails, the fault lies entirely with these two. It shows that the sixth prince's lack of knowledge and Guxian's solicitation have nothing to do with him. If it becomes, oh, how could that be? Look at him. He can't even make the right seals. How is that possible? Furthermore, how could they, the people outside the square, not know whether there are true laws in the world? If there was a real law, who would be happy to deal with this murderous emperor? As long as the pot was successfully thrown at Guxian and the sixth prince, he would have a chance of survival. Before he had a chance to make a move, the fifth prince's face changed, and he looked at the back of the Taoist with a shadowy look. Unexpectedly, he was actually tricked as well. Now he was even stabbed back, but it was already the case, and he had to get involved. It was a good thing that his naive sixth brother wasn't much good at anything. As the fifth prince prayed to Emperor Hong, he didn't forget to glance at the sixth prince. I also ask Father to grant it. It is a rare joy to have two high masters working together to perform the spell. Sixth brother. Just be honest and take the blame for fifth brother me. As for Guxian, a mere pariah who dares to deceive his majesty, death is death. Not worth caring about. Hong Emperor's pale eyes flashed slightly, knocking on the armrest if there is contemplation. Da. The fifth prince's heart lifted a little bit with it. The next moment, the knocking choked. Emperor Hiroshi nodded in agreement. Since you have this in mind, it is a pleasure. Cure, is that okay? Sixth Prince Li Mingji looked at Guxian with worry, and saw that his face remained light and breezy, and his heart felt a little more at ease. I think Sir is sure of it. My son listens to all of Father's wishes. Mr. Gu, please show your hand. Guxian began to wonder if they could speak human. What do I show? Did you ask my opinion before you made your decision? Guxian incomparably wanted to spray the crowd with blood, but he found himself in an extremely strange state. The more panicked the state of mind, the calmer the face. Even if your heart is beating so fast that it's going to explode, not even a drop of sweat broke out on his forehead. But to outsiders, Guxian's silence was precisely the confidence in his own skills. One stood on tiptoe and stretched his neck to look, noticing the gathered sights. Guxian's mind blanked out and he actually nodded gently. Wait a minute, what did I just say? Could it be that you really have a brain fart? Where's the necessary system for travelers? Come to the rescue. Under the watchful eyes of the civil and military officials on both sides, Guxian followed his fleshly memory and stepped on the 7-star pace. Eyes rolled back and forth, trying to find an escape. Slowly, he stepped toward the door of the temple, reciting the 5 thunders incantation allowed to stall for time. Heavenly thunder is hidden, and dragons and tigers intersect. Taihua Taiji, thunderbolt dash. Behind him, Emperor Hong lifted his hand lightly, and the 2 temple guards who had been instructed to follow. Guxian was oblivious, still continuing his steps without any haste. The electric mother coughed and roared, and the thunderer ran forward. General Thunderbolt, break the thunder and ambush the gods. Urgent. After reciting the incantation, there was no change as expected. 2 sharp blades were shinned out of their sheaths, and the white light was blinding. Slow down. Don't be in a hurry. I have other catchphrases. Fortunately for Guxian, he liked these arcane things in his past life. Otherwise you wouldn't be telling fortunes against an old godly man. Guxian blindly pinched another Dharma seal without panicking. Electricity Mother Thunder Duke. Quickly send down the divine power of. Follow me to get rid of the disease. Boom boom. I am under the orders of the elder Lord Tai Shang, and I am in a hurry. After a few trips back and forth, and after pouring the ink out of his stomach, he didn't come up with a way to break the game. Coming to the door of the temple, Guxian's urge to forcefully rush out rose violently. The result was that just as he took a step, the hem of his obstructing shirt tugged at his pants leg, causing him to nearly stagger to the ground. The commotion attracted the soldiers guarding the door and surrounded them. The halberds were interlaced in front of his chest, and the iron cold pierced through his clothes straight to the bone marrow. The fear of death rushed straight to the brain, making the scalp tingle and, even more post-stress goosebumps rose under his neck. Guxian was afraid to the extreme and in turn did not panic. Tai straightened his back and straightened his attire as if he had just made a bow to the heavens. It's just a matter of maybe it's meant to be. Hopefully, the dog Dowser who screwed him over won't end up well either. I hope the next reincarnation is better. The 6th prince saw Guxian striking out with the same little magical power, and was somewhat lost after being duped. But he is simple, honest and gentle. On second thought, Guxian had begged to come out of the mountain only because he had requested it. Even if they are crooks, they shouldn't be penalized like this. The 6th prince's eyes were squared and he was about to harden his heart and pray to his father. The mangy-headed Taoist who had succeeded in bringing the scourge to the east grinned a mouthful of yellow teeth and, making up his mind to throw the guilt at Guxian, snaps angrily. I thought you really had magic power, but I didn't realize that you were also a person who tries to make a name for yourself. Each boasts of great magical powers, but how can that divine power be used easily? The face of those outside our party is disgraced by people like you. While stepping on Guxian's foot, the mangy-headed Taoist put another layer of insurance on himself that, just in case Emperor Hiroshi continues to press the issue. In fact, Guxian could have bitten back and dragged him along to his death. However, his state of mind at the moment was like the clear wind brushing past the willow and the bright moon shining in the ditch. Can not do, and do not care to do the city scoundrels, shrew scolding the streets like ugly. Even if a sword is added to his body, he will not be afraid of it. Guxian's face was not sad or happy, and was clear and quiet. No fear of authority, no fear of life and death. So that Emperor Hong could not help but show his eyes in approval. This life and death put aside the heart. The earth is really rare. If you are a general, you are loyal. If you are a scribe, You are wise. If you can read 1,000,000 books, you might even be a great scholar. Pity. With such a good skin, you are still dirty inside. This group of scourge of the world, the Fawns, should all be killed. Emperor Hong's eyes were cold as he swept over the remaining few people. Each one of them trembled like a quail, fawning and begging for mercy, without a trace of dignity. Comparing it to Guxian, the difference was immediate. Emperor Hong was a bit tired and raised his hand to signal the temple guards to end this farce. The sharp blade was raised high, ready to deliver a more honorable death. Hey! At that moment, a long, vicissitude sigh echoed through the palace. No matter where you stand, you listen very carefully. The old eunuch Dekai's face even changed, immediately protecting the emperor's side and setting up his frame to alert the surrounding. Could it be the legendary 1,000-mile transmission? How in the world can there still be such a master? Looking at the source of the sound, he traced it back to the front of the temple. Suddenly a gust of wind blew in, blowing the ink robes and hair flying, and its scenery was as beautiful as a picture scroll. In this situation, Guxian surrounded himself with an indefinable and unexplainable mysterious flavor. He stood against the wind, as if he had a feeling, and looked up to the sky inside. Life is easy. The morning dew. The world is unpredictable. Bad pay repeat. Once this statement was made, the court full of civil officials snapped their eyes wide open and couldn't help but say marvelous in succession. Life is as short as the morning dew. The world is unpredictable. Unpredictable. Just one line of poetry, but it tells the truth that many people can't understand for the rest of their lives. Wonderful. Truly wonderful. Such verses could not have been made by anyone other than a man of great wisdom and well-traveled. The more he tasted, the more skillful he felt, and when he looked at Guxian, he also felt a love and appreciation for his talent. The young man who can produce such a masterpiece has this kind of heart. Maybe it's not easy to be born, and you've gotten into the wrong way just to make a living. As long as it is corrected and taught a little, it will certainly have a great future in the future. Even the movement of stroking his beard gave a start, and Chancellor Gongyang made a decision in his heart. This kind of talent must be preserved from His Majesty's hands. He didn't realize that Emperor Hiroshi, who heard this, was equally compassionate. But it was the first half of the sentence that Emperor Hong heard. Years pass easily and life is short. Late in life the disease sinks in and the energies are exhausted. The older I get, the easier it is to recall past glories and regrets that. It's hard to sleep at night, when giving verbal royal edicts to the princes. Why hadn't Emperor Hong's heart been looking forward to meeting a true cultivator? If he could extend his life for another 10 years, he would also have the ambition to be able to follow the 3 emperors and cover the 5 emperors. Being poked and prodded with scars, Hongdi's heart that was soft for a moment hardened again. Kong snapped. Dekai, go. Boom. There was a loud bang in the sky, which overshadowed the imperial decree. And even more so, it shocked the whole audience. Civilian officials, military officials, soldiers and guards, imperial princes, including Emperor Hong, all looked horrified. It's a manifestation? It's really manifesting. No. If there is a fairy in this world, it is impossible to see the suffering of the people and not help them. If there was truly an immortal, it would be impossible to disregard the nightly pleas of him. The human emperor. If there really is a fairy. Boom. Rumble. Rumble. Successive thunderbolts, one more than the other, make people feel like a landslide in front of them. Straight to the sky, outside the temple. The otherwise cloudless dome of the sky was covered with dark clouds, and underneath the cloud patterns an exquisite light flickered. It seemed to be nurturing vast divine might. Finally, brilliant heavenly thunder split the clouds, and golden thunder pulp gathered into a pool. In the thunder pool, the electric arc seems to demonstrate the mystery of the golden snake metamorphosed into a 5-clawed golden dragon, surging and prancing between the subtle changes. Endless rotation. When the dark clouds cleared and the blazing sun was in the sky, another golden thunderbolt chopped out from the heavens towards the earth. Rumble. The sound is overwhelming and irresistible. Like the descent of the heavenly god of demon swinging, he wants to swing his long whip to sweep away the filth for the people. That thunder did not disappear when it landed. Instead, it crawled swiftly along the ground, transforming into a golden swimming snake. Straight ahead, he zipped toward the huddle, eventually winding around Guxian's feet. Wisps of golden light blossomed and scalded into a golden lotus platform. The landscaping treasure on the robe also seemed to come alive at this moment, splitting into 2 swimming fish of black and white. Surrounding behind Guxian, it went up and down in a loop. It's so esoteric that it's almost Taoist. Immortal. It's an immortal in the world. I don't know who was the first to get out of the way. The guards whose blade tips were aimed at Guxian went numb through their bodies, and their trembling tigers' mouths could no longer hold their blades. It was as if the thought of wanting to harm Guxian was a heavenly sin. Swords and spears, clanking off the ground. The guards looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. even kneeling down and kowtowing to beg for forgiveness. Crying out for mercy from the immortals. Some of the lesser officials could not help but cry out in unison. We have eyes but no eyes. We've offended the immortal. Please forgive me, immortal. Chapter 3, Unwilling to live in a cage. Unbeknownst to him, Xuan's mind was also in turmoil at the moment. The sky appeared to be thundering. Horrified, he opened his eyes violently, and then he saw that all around him was kneeling down. What's going on here? Do these natives really think that daybreak thunder was summoned by him? Xuan, who had been saturated with netizens in his previous life, had countless conjectures in his mind at once. Could it be that I am the reincarnation of a great power? Words follow the law? In just half a day, one after the other, I was shocked. Xuan was gradually assimilated into the ancient well state of mind, putting aside the speculation about his birth. With this coincidence, his life is saved at the moment. Xuan, who had fused the memories of his original body's divine clerk, thought briefly and felt that it was still unsteady. Strike while the iron is hot. Take this opportunity to completely fool the entire court. With a flutter of his long sleeves, the temple guards kneeling in front of him knowingly made way. Xuan stepped forward with faith, and behind him, golden ripples rippled with every step that fell. The branded footprints are shaped like fairy herbs and flowers. Hiss. Ancient texts say, wherever saints live, there are many immortal herbs and precious animals, and visions of transit follow them. This is actually true. Truly an immortal has descended to earth. Not in vain. Not in vain. When the civil and military officials on both sides saw the scene, there was no doubt about it, and they all bowed with their hands and eyes in awe. Chancellor Gongyang looked to the dragon chair first and saw Emperor Hondi so shocked that he half stood up while bracing himself on the armrests. Turning back to his eyes, he quietly straightened his crown and held the ivory tablet in both hands. On behalf of the group of ministers, they bowed aloud to Xuan. We have eyes but no eyes. I hope Immortal Master will forgive us. Guma, walking slowly back to the front of the temple, listening to the Ram Chancellor, said so, the body of a stiff pause. Bad. It's not going to end well to pretend to be a big shot. Keep in mind that this was the feudal era, where the imperial power allowed religion to exist, but will never allow divine power to take precedence over royal power. Aren't the ministers trying to make the old emperor hold a grudge against him? Xuan's upper eyelids drooped slightly as he squinted out of sight, looking at the old emperor, who was already blushing. It was as if he was angry to the core. This group of people, it's just a thunderstorm during the day. What's the shock? He couldn't see the black and white two-tailed swimming fish that were alive and well behind him. It was only thought that the crowd was still shocked by the vision of the white lightning. There has to be a way to put fire under this old emperor. His heart was restless and his mind was racing to find a way out. There. Xuan turned around, his palms folded an inch in front of his chest. Bowing slightly and solemnly, he returned the bow to the group of ministers. Mr. Gu is a square outsider and cannot accept such a gift. The great men are the backbone of the rivers and mountains, the pillars of the heavens that make the people live in peace and happiness. It should be Gumao who thanks you all on behalf of the cosmos beings. Xuan's tone was calm but sincere, and anyone who heard it was speaking from the bottom of his heart. In the hearts of the group of ministers all of a sudden earned a lot of goodwill. Even when the Ram Chancellor straightened up, his face was flushed with a bright light in his eyes. He has not been praised much, and was even once praised by the emperor as the mirror of the coat and clothes of Datong. No other time had he been as excited as he was now. Who's in front of you? That's an immortal. Mr. Gu spoke modestly, but whoever really took him for an ordinary square scholar would be a real fool. Its body surrounds the two chi of yin and yang, brilliant golden thunder to listen to the call. Step-by-step visionary birth. When he stood still, a more complex pattern was formed under his feet, vaguely resembling the outline of the 8 trigrams of heaven. Filled with inexhaustible subtleties. If Mr. Gu is not an immortal, who can claim to be? Thank you, Immortal Master, for your praise. The ministers once again thanked. All look excited. Keep small movements quietly organizing dress, trying to leave a good impression on Xuan. Unlike the awe of the courtiers, the naive 6th prince only felt heartfelt happiness. He wasn't fooled. Mr. Gu is really capable of true cultivation. Great. Now Father won't blame Mr. Clasping his hands, he said to Emperor Hong, Father, Mr. Gu has already exerted the means to pass through the heavens. Please also ask this Taoist master to quickly perform his immortal magic, so as not to delay the moment for good. The mangy-headed Taoist's eyes dodged as a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Even if he broke his head, he couldn't figure out that this person could actually summon thunder and lightning, but as long as there was a glimmer of life, he would not give up the struggle. The Taoist clenched his teeth and hardened his head. Your Holiness, Datong is a large place, and the vision of thunder in the daytime is unusual. Furthermore, I see that this fellow Taoist has no Taoist lineage, and is even pinching the Dharma seal of the sect of release. Chant the incantation of the Lai Taoist sect. Please be vigilant. Your Holiness, do not be coaxed by criminals agu. The fifth prince, who had been so shocked by the vision that he lost his concentration, suddenly changed his face when he heard Lizzie Head open his mouth, raising his leg and kicking him to the ground. The Taoist's words were completely dogged and shameless, nakedly calling Xuan a liar. It didn't matter if this was said before Xuan manifested himself, but it was pure idiocy to say it afterward. The fifth prince couldn't wait to slap himself when he thought that this kind of stupid person was actually found by himself. As expected, the words of the mangy-headed Taoist caused the atmosphere of the court to sink. The clayman still had 3 points of fire. Xuan was just in an ancient state of mind. It didn't mean he didn't have likes and dislikes. Anyone who was targeted over and over again would be disgusted. Xuan mentally worded how he should curse without ruining his image. On his face, he still had a transcendent, indifferent expression. But while he didn't say anything, the group of ministers underneath had already made a lot of noise, especially the military officials. They were already bold and fierce in nature. Let's not talk about whether Xuan was true or not. This spine-poking behavior of the mangy-headed Taoist, it is most displeasing to them. A burly man with a ringed beard and steel whiskers immediately stepped forward to break into song. That thieving road. What skills you have, just show them. Why make that long-winded gesture behind your back? Shame on you. Light scolding is not yet relieved. The ring-beard strong man clutched the tablet, angrily smashed forward. Drawing a bow and arrow is not yet a difficult task, and throwing is even less so. The clang hit right in the center of the eyebrow, smashing Lizzie's head. After the fire had died down, the Ringu military officer calmed down quite a bit, and chagrined at the impulsiveness of what he had just done. I can't help but be scolded by His Majesty again afterward. However, when he saw Xuan turn slightly sideways to look at him, another wave of excitement rose in the heart of the military official. Hey, scolding is fine. It's not a bad idea to make an impression on the immortals. Behind them, someone suddenly exclaimed, Kagan, your arm. Ha, why is my arm? This? Kagan was none other than the ring-hued military officer, and was somewhat puzzled to hear his fellow officer point to his left arm. He was hit by an arrow the other day when he was fighting a rebellion, and the arrow was poisoned. It has caused a delay in his condition. Several hemorrhages. But there's no need to be so shocked, is there? As he was thinking this, Kagan suddenly felt an itching sensation spreading in his little arm, itching to the core of his heart. Can't help but scratch. But there was an overpowering sensation when my fingertips touched my arm. A ray of golden light collapsed the bandage dash, revealing the wound, which was actually already a newborn pink and red flesh. This. Kagan was so excited that he was incoherent and threw his arms around vigorously. The injury that the physician diagnosed that it would take half a month to get better actually returned as good as new in an instant. The golden light dissipated as the injury got better, and it was clear in an instant who had done this. Kue Kong clasped his fists and bowed solemnly to Xuan. Kue Kong thanks Immortal Master. What simple-minded military officials can think of, other officials can naturally think of as well. Just punishing evil on behalf of the immortals will cure the stubborn disease, and that's a good thing? Immediately, he cursed at the mangy head. Chancellor Ram was a man of action, and while other civil officials were stuck in verbal condemnation, he had pushed up his sleeves, aiming at the fallen head of Lizzie. He threw the ever-prized ivory wattles with all his might. Bang! Oh, the mangy head, which had only just raised its head, was hit in the eye socket again with a blow that, the blood flowed like a dyer's workshop. Lord Rams is so accurate. Oh, the old man was still a master pot thrower when he was young. AI Lord Gongyang's elegance, this is more than ever. The Ram Chancellor stroked his beard and accepted the compliments with a smile. When Xuan looked over, he immediately collected some of his expression and straightened his waist for a few moments. In the next moment, the black and white twin fish behind Xuan's back rotated a split second faster. A wisp of white clear chi crashed into the Ram Chancellor's heavenly spirit in the sight of everyone. Incorporating that ray of clear air, the Ram Chancellor's already cloudy eyes cleared up quite a bit. The face is even more rosy for a few minutes. The whole person's essence is more youthful. Apparently from the immortals there were great benefits. Which of the ministers could still hold back? For a time, the tablet and boots flew about. This is where the benefits of having a high official rank come into play. Civilian officials with low official positions who could only stand at the back of the line could not hit the ball even if they tried their best. In vain. I watched the front row ministers get made and beat their chests in regret. A great opportunity is in front of us, but we can't get it because of our small strength. Repentance also. After the commotion calmed down a bit, Emperor Hong heavily slapped the armrest. Silence. The entire room was silent, only staring at the white-faced Taoist with eyes that couldn't wait to skin and bone. Emperor Hong looked at Xuan in a complicated manner. At this moment, Although inwardly, he had determined that Xuan was a capable true cultivator, but he was equally curious about the earlier question from the mangy head. Sir, just which Dao lineage are you a great power? It's refreshing to have someone avenge yourself. Xuan had long since prepared an answer, yet he still pretended to model left and right for a moment of contemplation before softly chanting. Sitting on the Tao, participating in Zen and understanding the words of the Confucian, the three schools of thought work together as they should. Enlightenment converts the sincere truth in one word, and guides the lifeless to the mystery of nature. Its voice is low, but it seems to be like the wind and rain, moist and silent, a Zen speech of truth, containing the 3,000 great paths and pointing directly to the origin of the three religions. Suddenly, the thunder that had subsided outside the hall surged again, and a breeze blew into the Chunha hall. It was as if the group of ministers had heard a sermon from a celestial being, and they were all mesmerized, with the clear wind slightly swinging their bodies. And Emperor Hong, seated on the dragon chair, felt it most deeply. He has only heard it in his ears, not yet realized it in his mind. However, because Xuan was facing him, the breeze was also blowing towards him. It will make Hongdi's aged and shriveled skin moisturize a few points, and his aged internal organs and lungs. It was as if it had been nourished by a spiritual fountain, and it came back to life. The disease of the past, the old disease, in an instant to alleviate a little. Even the spiritual platform also clear a lot. After getting older, Emperor Hiroshi had never had such a relaxing moment. Oh, fresh and healthy body. He had searched so long and so hard for the. Surprisingly, it was only because of Xuan's words of truth that he sought it. Emperor Hongdi pushed away Dekai's assistance and couldn't help but stand up in excitement. Step by step down the steps to the front of the temple, Tom Xuan calmly stared at each other for a moment. This is the second time. Those calm eyes became more and more mysterious the more I looked into them. And underneath them there seemed to be a star revolving and the depths go straight to the origin of the great Tao. Under this immortal aura, power loses its color. Emperor Hong exhaled a cloudy breath, and for the first time since he ascended the throne, he clasped his hands and saluted someone. The tone was sincere. Mr. is really a great talent. It's my eyes that are clumsy to recognize a real person in front of me, so I hope that you will forgive me. I, the widow, would like to be invited as the teacher of a country, and I hope that you will protect my Datong. When this statement was made, the whole audience was shocked. It's a division of a nation. It is a supreme position of one person and 10,000 people. Even the emperor was on par with him. I didn't realize that His Majesty was so bold as to offer half the country as a gift to invite an immortal into the court. The group of ministers simultaneously swallowed their saliva with mixed emotions. There was some envy, some opposition, and more, but anticipation. On the one hand, there has never been a precedent for a founder to enter the court. However, this Mr. Gu was most likely a living true immortal. If we can get his protection, I can't imagine how strong Cosmos will be in the future. Chancellor Gong Yang, who had been in the upper position for a long time, was first shocked, followed by a slight shake of his head. How could an immortal with such a beautiful scenery covet earthly power and wealth? And how can those who are greedy for fame and fortune become immortal? Your Majesty, you're going to be disappointed this time. As expected, Xuan's brows furrowed in the face of half of Datong. Your Majesty, Gu will not be able to scheme and maneuver. No honor or disgrace. Tranquil and prolonged life. The intention is not in the courtroom. Chapter 4 Drunken Talk on Eternal Life. To be the master of the state? What a joke. It's only by sheer luck that you can fool your way through. Wouldn't staying at the court reveal itself at any time? But remember that the other party is the emperor after all. Xuan thought for a moment and rubbed his resignation, finding a step down for Hongdi. Your Majesty, Gu deeply cultivates in the mountains and forests, and recently had an epiphany. Inspiration is hard to find and it is not advisable to enter the world. This trip to join the court is really the sixth prince's graciousness. After repaying this favor, Gu shall return to the forest and attend to the Xian and the Tao. Rang, Mr. Ge's destiny with Cosmos has not yet ended, and we will meet in the future. In human terms, it means, I'm not capable. I'm not competent. Let me go. Next time for sure. The visions that surrounded his body gradually faded away, and although Xuan's aura remained dusty, but it loses the sense of distance that at any moment it will vanish and soar. Hearing this, Emperor Hong's heart was a little more at ease while at the same time, he looked at Xuan a few points higher, worthy of being a capable true cultivator. Not only is his cultivation heavenly, but he is also so humble. If this kind of capable person could not stay, he must not sleep day and night. However, when a character like Immortal Master Gu said that he was destined to be with Cosmos, naturally it would not be false. We can't just turn around and run, can we? Ha ha, let's go. Let's go with him today. Emperor Hong's complexion changed a few times, and he thought briefly. Instead of walking onto the high platform again, he stood at Guxian's side and it was announced aloud in front of the civil and military officials. Effective immediately, 6th Prince Li Mingji is the crown prince of my Datong. In addition, a mountain of sitting forgetfulness is given to immortal master Guxian as a dojo. Retreat. Father. No. Your Majesty. The 6th prince and Guxian opened their mouths near the same time, so much so that they froze eye to eye. Mr. Gu. The 6th prince was about to say something that, however, he only bitterly arched his hand toward Guxian and wilted and hung his head. Emperor Hong's mind was made up, and he immediately waved away the ministers. Some officials still wanted to advise His Majesty to think twice, but seeing that His Majesty was too resolute at the moment, it was not good to discuss the matter further. It can only be retired for the time being. Amidst the cries and pleas for mercy, the corpses in front of the temple platform and the remaining Fengshi were also forcibly dragged away by the guards. Except for the corpses, it's the mangy heads that are the quietest. The Ram Chancellor is as old as the hills. That Wutu board really knocked him out. When the ministers retired from the court, several princes looked at each other in disbelief. Old 6th was made crown prince. Where do they go from here? Father, we. The 3rd prince was the most subdued and asked apprehensively. With his hands behind his back, Emperor Hong swept his eyes meaningfully over the royals. It took a full 10 seconds before he spoke. You guys go down first too. Yes, father. Before leaving, the unwilling 2nd prince even scraped Guxian with a sinister sight. The crown prince's seat should have gone to him, and now it's fallen to that wimpy, incompetent Li Mingji. Without this man, Emperor Hong took in the 2nd prince's small movements in his eyes, but didn't say anything. Instead, he kindly and affably spoke with Guxian. It's almost noon. Would you like to dine with me, sir? He also called out to the 6th prince, who was walking side by side with the 9th prince, Ajir. You also come together. Ha! Hey! Li Mingji didn't react for a moment, or was reminded by the 9th prince bumping his shoulder. Only then did he happily follow. It's good that Emperor Hiroshi didn't say anything. At this remark, Guxian felt an unbearable hunger in his belly. Can't help but remember the days of bitter the original body in order to cultivate the illusion of being untainted by the red dust. Every day she drinks the morning dew, eats the stamens of flowers, and does not touch meat or fish, not near the fire. This immortal-looking physique is completely starved out. Guxian arched his eyebrow slightly underneath, and quite uncharacteristically, he was looking forward to lunch. Then I'll bother your majesty. The palace at the back of the Chunha temple, directly north, is called the Qianyang Temple. It was originally a building for performing morning and evening rituals and enjoying the moon to pray for blessings. However, since Emperor Hong's ascension to the throne, it was hard to change it into a palace for martial arts discussion with the harem consorts. In order to win the smile of the beauty, but also in the northwest corner of the construction of a small area of the Imperial garden, Emperor Hong is not good unusual flowers and plants, favoring exotic treasures. The garden is also full of exotic flowers and plants that cannot be named. March is often refreshing with an easterly wind, brushing through the branches of old, pale trees and through the rocks of the majestic mountains. The fragrant wind with full of spring color along the green stone road, scraped across a carved wooden bridge over a stream, which blew into the Jade Pavilion. As the name suggests, the Jade Pavilion is made of famous jadeite throughout. The pavilion body is based on transparent white jade, with 4 slightly curved eaves and complicated and exquisite carvings under the eaves. The sunlight shines through the thin spots on the tabletop like ripples in the water. A veiled courtesan holding an icy jade and emerald plate. It is filled with cheese cherries, steamed pears drizzled with honey, savory pastries. Another silver jug with jewels of various colors was brought to the table and filled with wine for the 3 men. These treasures and delicacies are all priceless and inviting treasures in the outside world. Here, however, it is only for quenching one's thirst for pleasure. But to Guxian, a roughneck, what was in front of him was not nearly as tempting as a chicken leg. The heart is wondering, is it possible that there are some taboos in the palace? It is impossible for the king of a country to be unable to afford to eat meat, right? Hong Di, who had deliberately returned to his chambers to change into his bright yellow regular clothes, raised his wine bottle to Guxian and invited him. I know that Mr. Widow doesn't eat earthly food, but it's hard to find immortal fruits in the mortal world. Only some of the vegetarian wine is good, and I would ask the gentleman to make do with it. No food for thought? Who? Are you talking about me? Guxian was a bit helpless. Fittingly, it was his appearance that was too confusing for people to misunderstand. It's okay to have wine, or a toast from the king of a country. I'll have something to brag about later. I'm afraid that Emperor Hong could never have imagined that he honored Guxian as an immortal master. But the real Guxian, still mundane. Your Majesty, please, please. 6th Prince Li Mingji purely to make up the head of a person. After drinking wine cannot insert words. holding a juicy steamed pear and munching on it in silence. The two chatted politely and then quickly became acquainted. Xuan was assimilated by a bland state of mind and didn't care about Emperor Hongdi's imperial power. And Emperor Hongdi was again and again impressed by Xuan's erudition and knowledge. There are some ideas and concepts that at first sound absurd and irrational, but the more I pondered it, the more I was amazed at the great wisdom it contained. Not only do they have a unique point of view, but they also have a good knowledge of astronomy and geography. Whether it's asking for advice on the mysteries of Xianxian, the mind of the emperor, farming, selling words, Xuan seemed to be able to tell one or two things as if he knew everything, and it was easy to understand and far-reaching in intent. The more they talked, the more they tickled the heart of Emperor Hong, who loved talent. He couldn't wait to be able to force Xuan to stay and sleep together against his feet night after night. After 3 rounds of wine, Hongdi's eyes had more than a few hints of drunkenness in them. Smacking his lips, he put down the wine bottle with reluctance and, ultimately, he opened the door and asked, "Mr. Gu, dare I ask if there is a way to live forever in this world?" "I knew you would ask. Don't say you. I want to know too." The county village squires still have ambitions for immortality, not to mention a king of a country. But Xuan had crossed over only half a day ago and hadn't traveled through this world yet, so how could he dare to jump to conclusions? Lifting his eyes into the distance, his heart was filled with longing. This world was mysterious and tantalizing, full of infinite possibilities, and there might really be a method of everlasting life. But, right now, we have to fool the old emperor first. How should I fool around? Ta! Xuan had the habit of knocking on the table when he sat down to think, and for a moment he didn't think of what to say. Heartily, he glanced at Emperor Hiroshi. "We had such a pleasant chat earlier. Even if I say I don't know, it won't kill me, right?" But his silence seemed to mean something else to Emperor Hong. "Haha, thank you, sir. The widow understands." Hong Emperor suddenly realized. "Drink the cup is not too much." Waved away pouring wine palace maids, to the mouth of the pot. "Drink the remaining half of the jug in one gulp." "Ha? What did I say? What did you understand again?" Xuan was at a loss. Emperor Hongdi put down the silver wine pot and tilted his body towards Xuan's front, lowering his voice as if he was afraid that people would hear him. Sir just raised his head to the sky and tapped his fingertips on the table 3 times. "It is to tell the widow that this is a secret of the heavens, and must not be lightly transmitted." But then he looked to the widow, and meant to say that at the perfect time of the time, the place, and the people, to be able to pass it on. When he finished speaking, he even nodded with self-approval. "Mr. Gu, does the widow's enlightenment make sense?" The corners of Xuan's mouth twitched unnoticeably a few times. "I meant that?" Despite the internal mess of hair and a bunch of words that wanted to rant stuck in his throat. But this spiteful seed was an emperor after all. And even if his brainstorming was outrageous, he had to go along with the words. No words may or may not be spoken. Xuan held back a sentence in a mysterious manner. "The odds are not in favor." At this moment, he instantly realized that those monks and Taoists, why is there always some unspeakable, due to fate type of Riddler behavior? What a universal excuses. Not being able to hear Xuan's heartfelt words, Emperor Hong rightly assumed that he had acquiesced. The two of them pushed their glasses and drank a few more cups of vegetarian wine. When Xuan was already a bit tipsy, only then did Emperor Hiroshi end the conversation. "Mr. Good drinker, I had a very pleasant talk with Mr. Gu today. However, I still have political affairs to attend to. It is not convenient to keep the gentleman longer. When he has time to spare, he will be invited to a feast, and I hope that you will not excuse yourself. Naturally, I hope your majesty's health is not in danger." Emperor Hiroshi was in a trance as he got up, and was helped straight by the ghostly old eunuch. When he looked down, he saw that Li Myunji was still eating the crispy cake, and he couldn't help but blush. "This kid ate until now? Cure, you go see Mr. Gu off." "Yes, father." The two chattered happily, and the 6th prince ate happily. Didn't drink much wine. Most of the plate of cherries were dipped in cheese and eaten clean, even nibbled on 3 steamed pears, and the pastries were eaten without knowing how many. He nearly hiccuped when he got up, and hastily clasped his hands in a salute to cover it up a bit. "Hey!" Emperor Hong shook his head slightly and led the old eunuch away. Chapter 5. The storm is coming to the capital, but it's better to go back to the mountains. The sun was sloping toward the west. The tall stallion stepped on the green stone path with a steady pace. Each step lifted and fell. All of them are accompanied by the clear ringing of brass bells hanging from the 4 corners of the roof of the car. Ring ring ring. The wheels are wide and the ride is rarely bumpy. With the curtains in place. The shouts from far downtown were much lazier and sounded listless. Tatung has had a lot of turmoil within its borders in recent years, and the city gates close early. It closed at exactly 3 minutes past Shenzhen. changing to the time Xuan was familiar with, the equivalent of 3:45 p.m. In a previous life, someone might have just woken up at this hour, but in ancient times, entertainment was scarce. You could see a juggler once in a while. There's not much entertainment in the day-to-day except making babies. Xuan had the intention to lift the curtain and take a look at the world that had intrigued him. However, because the sixth prince, Li Mingji, was in the carriage with he had to continue to put on his unearthly appearance. The horses' hooves slowed until they came to a halt, and a line of neatly ordered heavy feet approached. It should have reached the gates of the city, where heavily armored guards came to verify it. According to the rules, Li Mingji could have simply asked his men to go and say something, but he wanted to get out of the carriage. Explain in person with the guards. Mr. Gu, the cure goes and comes back. Aha! The breeze blew away the drunkenness by a few points. Xuan shook his head, pulled up the curtains, and tilted his head to look at the city walls. Worthy of being the capital of a country, the walls guarding the city of Shangjing are like a continuous dragon. One boulder was neatly built up, resembling the scale armor on the dragon. On the city wall, a black armored soldier holding an iron lance stood every few meters, looking into the distance. A huge door nearly as thick as a man stood across the entrance and exit of the fortress, no weaker than the steep face of a high mountain. After half a quarter of an hour, Boom Ron the gate slowly pushed. Returning to his car, Li Myanji was still distantly thanking the city guards. Hiya, pa. With a wave of the whip and a loose release of the reins, the carriage continued to move out of town. Li Mingji patted his sleeve and apologized nervously. I've kept you waiting. Sir, not busy. Xuan was in no hurry for this moment. After leaving Shangjing, you have to follow the official road northward for one stage, i.e., almost 30 miles, to reach Mount Situa. The carriage was not fast, and it was estimated that it would take more than an hour. He had no desire to sleep at this time. Instead of being bored, he would rather chat with Li Mingji for a while. The sixth prince. No, now it should be called the crown prince. A momentary slip of the tongue. Xuan hurriedly changed his words. The ancients placed considerable value on name-calling, and to say nothing of it would be considered deliberately provocative. But Li Mingji obviously didn't care about that, and waved his hand repeatedly with a drooping brow. Mr. Gu, you're being too much of a pain in the ass. Just call me by my first name. When he finished, he sighed heavily. An 8-foot-tall, handsome man is now swallowing and squirming. It always gives a strong sense of dissonance. He pondered for a while, but decided to tell Xuan what he hadn't said before the temple. Sir, actually, I don't want to be the crown prince. Li Meiji scrunched his head and finished stiffly before carefully lifting his eyes upward to skim a look of fear of being criticized. Who would have thought that Xuan, instead of being surprised, nodded with an approving eye. It's good to have that thought. Of all you family, you are the one who has lived the most sober life. Xuan viewed the battle for the throne entirely with the mindset of a city dweller, the most ruthless imperial royalty. It's no joke to accompany a king like a tiger. Emperor Hiroshi looks like a kind and affable funny little old man, but essentially temperamental and murderous. The remaining princes also have their own abilities and connections, and their ambitions are not small. On the contrary, the sixth prince, Rong, didn't go in and looked out of place, though he most resembles Emperor Hiroshi in looks, with his sword brows and tall, powerful eyes. But the doer is too gentle and courteous, even to the point of being soft-tempered. Such a man would be a great lord if he were not a deep-minded, well-disguised man. It's just as silly. Obviously, the sixth prince was the latter. Before confessing, Li Mingji was actually prepared to be scolded for not being competitive. Seeing Xuan like this, he was puzzled instead. You don't blame me, sir? Why should I blame you? Xuan, who was asked the rhetorical question, felt a bit puzzled. He, an outsider, was. What's so important about opinions? The two hadn't realized that their conversation was not really on the same channel. Xuan thought that the sixth prince was pulling him to talk about some parental matters and came to listen with an eating mindset. Li Mingji, however, thought that Xuan was testing him to see if he had any cultivation value, struggling a bit in the bottom of his heart. In the end he didn't lie and hardened his heart to say what he really thought. I'm not competitive. I'm not ambitious. I'm not capable. I just want to spend my life in lazy idleness. Seeing Xuan's silence, he spat out the past in an almost self-indulgent manner. My elder brother and second brother could speak at the age of 1, could read 1,000 words at the age of 3, and could write poems at the age of 5. They have had extraordinary learning since they were young, and I could not speak until I was 5 years old, and at 7 I could read no more than 100 words. The words of the saints. I copied it 1,000 times, but it has not yet been memorized. Speaking, Li Mingji indisputably to his own eyes read, harboring a funny and heartbreaking, flipping out the kippa to sip the corners of his eyes. He continued with the disgraceful story. I thought that I wouldn't be able to learn how to study literature anyway, so I just practiced martial arts. It took a long time of kneeling and begging father to finally get permission. Even more so, he worshipped a hidden martial arts master as his teacher. The conversation lurched, and Li Mingji held his face red for a few moments, a little ashamed. Everyone has different talents as well, and being able to excel in martial arts is equally remarkable. Xuan looked at him approvingly and was phrasing how to encourage him. Here comes the twist. But, I've been practicing martial arts for 3 years, let alone opening the tendons and veins. I have not even memorized all the chakra diagrams. Nothing much to be gained except more food and a better physique. Even my teacher thought I was rotten and left me overnight without saying goodbye. He left only one letter, saying that he had many enemies outside. Let me never admit to its teacher-student relationship outside. Xuan, how else was he supposed to be comforted? You can't do anything. You can't eat anything. Even the teachers are ashamed of them. Made a lame excuse to run away. After expressing the depressed anger in his chest, Li Mingji was much more relaxed and collapsed backward. If you're despised, so be it. Anyway, he has always been used to waste. The heart is also open-minded. Do not bother to make concealment of fraud. I know that I have neither learned talent, nor a talent for martial arts, nor can I harden my heart. Practice that Imperial mind trick. How can I possibly cure Cosmos like this? Muffled at the end, silence returned to the compartment. Xuan, who had been listening all the way, didn't speak again and didn't know how to speak. It would be just as well if Li Mingji was in an ordinary family, and he could still feed 2 mouthfuls of poisonous chicken soup. But Li Mingji is a member of the royal family. He's even just been made crown prince, and he's going to be the emperor in the future. He is a good man no less, gentle and kind, simple and upright, easy-going. These personalities can be placed in anyone but a monarch. Meiji Li is self-aware enough to say that he's a bit serious about being a waste of space. But, it really didn't get much better. It's a knot in the heart, twisted by years of inaction. Xuan listened in, but his mind was agonizing over another matter. The parties involved know that they are not good enough to be used, and the Hong Emperor, who has been a king's mind for a long time, would not know that? Saying that Emperor Hiroshi is trying to save his face and redeem his promise? Ha! Come on, don't be silly. What did Emperor Hiro do at court? In public, he verbally proclaimed the 6th prince as the crown prince, and gifted Mount Situa to Xuan. Attention! It is verbal. Those defeated princes, will they be satisfied with this? Not to mention others, the 2nd prince will not be at peace. The 2nd prince's character was exactly the opposite of the 6th prince. He was decisive and ruthless, thin-skinned, and never a good person. But this is the lordly position. Abruptly, Xuan would also come back to his senses and his eyes snapped open. The 6th prince has neither dependence nor talent. Emperor Hong engaged in this trick of verbal enthronement, making the harmless Lao Lu the crown prince. It's a clear case of sibling rivalry. Moreover, there was no intention of testing him. Maybe he even wanted to use the opportunity to tie Xuan to the 6th prince. If so, with the immortals protecting Cosmos, there would be no harm in making the 6th prince ascend the throne in the future. As for what to do if he angered Xuan, when it was confirmed that Xuan was capable, this was instead a good thing. Why? There are times when the only way to admit a mistake and show an attitude, and subsequently make a lasting impression, is to make a mistake first. This is no longer an imperial mind trick, but a way of splitting up the world. 3 birds with 1 stone. After thinking it through, Xuan's entire body shivered coldly and couldn't help but feel a chill all over his body. A tiger's venom does not yet eat its children, but the human heart can be so vicious. This is the emperor. He's counting on his own son. Xuan could even guess that there would definitely be a banquet invitation within 3 days. By then, Emperor Hong said he couldn't help but invite all the royal sons to participate. At the banquet, he then deliberately shows his importance to Lao Lu, stimulating conflicts between the royal sons. Gulp. Xuan's ancient, wave-free mind rippled. Run away. Must run away. Can't play with this old fox. Hongdi, the upper capital will soon become a place where storms gather. In his mind, the faces of the emperor and Emperor Hiroshi shifted and spun, twisting and stretching into thin lines. It ends up in a line of bloody, corpse-written words. The Xuan woman change. Staying in the capital is a pure death wish. We must escape as soon as possible. But looking at the puddle of princes in front of him, Xuan felt a brain ache. I don't know if Li Mingji realized that a crisis was looming, but it would never be possible for Xuan to stay behind to prop up the tiger's skin. It is not true that the prince was scornful of him for a moment, and when the time had passed, there must be someone with a wolf's heart to do it. By then, he'll be in the open and the Black Hand will be in the dark. There's no defense. If we use the immortal's identity to draw in connections, it's inevitable that the group of royals will jump over the wall. Send dead soldiers ahead to assassinate. Right now it looks like a dead end. He stays in Shangjing. It's nothing more than the difference between dying early and dying late. Looking at the double-eyed Li Mingji, Gu Xian lowered his eyes and secretly apologized. There's no way to protect others when you can't even protect your own life at any time of the day or night. The horseman halted his steed, walked slowly a few steps to a halt, and fawningly whispered inwardly, "Your Highness the Crown Prince and Lord Immortal Master, Mount Sitting Forgotten has arrived." Not realizing that the time for contemplation flew by so quickly, Li Mingji instantly shook off a disheveled face and, Shake stood up. "I'll see you off, sir." Gu Xian didn't have time to refuse, and the other party had already taken the lead in getting out of the car. He had to politely decline the idea of being sent up the mountain by Li Mingji. Looking at Li Mingji's unattractive nature, Gu Xian, after a few moments of hesitation, finally felt compassion. Shouting to stop his back, he said, "Li Mingji, you have a heart of gold." At those words, Li Mingji paused and turned around, not understanding what he meant. He clasped his hands and bowed to Gu Xian. Sincerely begged the question. "Cure stupidity. But please, sir, explain." It was not a good idea to talk about this matter outright, and Gu Xian had already made up his mind to run away. Taking Meiji Li with us was out of the question, and there might be search warrants flying all over the place, but if he throws a fake bait before he leaves, it might become a talisman for Li Mingji. After thinking for a while he pinched a magic seal in a pretense of subtlety, his tone solemn and calm. "The great Tao is 49 years old, and one of them is a human being. The world runs on, and there is more loss than gain. I see that you are by no means a pool animal. It's just that the time has not yet come." Chapter 6, The Mystery of the Hut. Night fell, and the brass bells in his ears faded away. Until the end, Gu Xian did not explain too much to Li Mingji. There are some things that are better said halfway, and when they are said thoroughly, they lose their proper effect. When he pictured the scene where the sixth prince spoke to Emperor Hong about this matter, Gu Xian couldn't help but heave a smile. Aren't old foxes quite capable of brainstorming? Just as well. I'll lend you a hand to keep your good six this time. The sky was gray and the sun was setting. A gust of night wind blew into his neck collar, causing Gu Xian to stop laughing and couldn't help but shrink his neck. Looking up the mountain road gulped. Mount Sitting Forget is neither high nor steep, and because of its proximity to the official road in the city of Shangjing, there will be guards hunting the beasts of the mountains in the fall of each year. The genus of wolves and jackals and wild boars was almost wiped out, but some snakes, scorpions, poisonous insects and wild rabbits and pheasants are still there. Walking in the mountains at night was just unusual for the ancients, but in Gu Xian's eyes, the mountain in front of him seemed to open its dark maw, waiting for him to enter on his own accord. "Hey, kind of regret it. I should have known to borrow a torch for lighting." Gu Xian sighed and rolled up his sleeves, lifting the hem of his robe again. This outfit in front of people, how very ethereal. At the moment hiking will be how woeful. The hills are densely populated with dwarf trees, whose wildly sharp branches are already covered with budding flower buds that, the aroma is light and fresh, with a hint of sweetness. Gu Xian guessed that this should be a type of peach tree, but he couldn't recognize it any more specifically. The light is so obscure that every step must be taken with extreme caution. If you lose your footing and fall on the tip of a branch, lest you poke a bloody hole. Before I could walk a few steps, a dark cloud suddenly came to cover the moon, and the cold wind came together, blowing the leaves of the forest full of trees soughing and the petals falling. It was too dangerous to rush now, so Gu Xian could only rest his eyes closed while holding onto a tree trunk. It was not until about the middle of the moon that the dark clouds drifted away. By now the eyes had adjusted to the darkness, and, once again, he returned by stepping on the moonlight. Somewhere, a thatched hut stood in the middle of a clearing surrounded by old trees. The outside of the wall was brushed dry with mud, and every time the wind blew, it blew down a lot of dusty debris. The roof of the hut was blown several times, but the wind was not strong enough to topple. If it comes to the high days of fall, it's time for the owner of this hayloft to roam the hills in pursuit. Outside of such a humble hayloft, how it looks. About 5 feet away was inserted a wooden board. It was inscribed with fluttering and flying words, quite like everyone else's. Da. An approaching foot stood in front of the boards and read aloud with the help of the moonlight. Make a hut to participate in the mystery, and the peach forest to be drunk as an immortal. Hiss, I'm that good at handwriting? The visitor was naturally Gu Xian. He patted the dust stained on his sleeve and surveyed the entire hut, the drunken immortal hut. Sounds hermit-like. In reality, it's a dangerous house that could collapse at any moment. The whole thing is poetic. But isn't this thing just a grain stack? Gu Xian couldn't help but spit out a comment as he carefully removed the 2 wooden boards that acted as the door. There is nothing valuable inside the hut. Put the doorplate purely for fear of being wild monkeys as a latrine. No joke. This really happened to the original. Just into the interior. Would dust breath drilling surging into the mouth and nose? Good thing the recent sky clear and no rain. Has not yet moldy. Xuan breathlessly touched his left and looked at his right, once again thinking that coming back was not a good idea. But there was no way. Li Mingji promised a generous gift. The original body at first pretended to be noble to give refused. After the deed was done, he didn't have a chance to ask for the money, resulting in not a single coin in his pocket. The most valuable thing in his entire body was only this robe. Forget it. Barely make do. We'll hurry along the official road first thing in the morning. Lying helplessly on the haystack that served as a bed, Xuan reassured himself. Hiss good zing. Haystacks are never comfortable to sleep in, especially in these slim clothes, as if you were lying on the point of a needle. Turning back and forth and tossing a few times, there was still no sleep. The prickly scratching sensation annoyed Xuan for a moment, and, raising his hand to his body, pop. What the hell? The palms of the hands felt a touch distinctly abnormal to that of a haystack, and after curiously picking away at the weeds, a package was found buried underneath. This is? Xuan unwrapped it while searching for the original owner's memories in his mind. Nay, the fragments of the original body's memories were really messy, and he couldn't remember much for a while. Unwrapping the brown and green package revealed a book hidden within. Looking at the margins, the pages are slightly yellowed and obviously have some age on them. Overall still intact and extremely well protected. Moving away from the wooden planks blocking the door, the moonlight is difficult to identify. The cover of the ancient book is obscure and difficult to understand the words, but Xuan was surprised to find that he actually recognized them all. The 3 Dan scriptures. 3 words are like the key to unlocking relevant memories buried deep in the mind. The experience of gushing out caused Xuan to rub his temples for relief. After absorbing the memories, Xuan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air before instantly becoming agitated. Ha ha, I was saying how there's no golden finger. So the treasure is right here. No one could have imagined that the world's hard-won immortal destiny. Surprisingly, it was in a mediocre ancient book. It is said that the original owner's ancestor had an immortal destiny, and that an immortal bestowed numerous treasures on him. And this book is one of those things. In the midst of the changing of the sun and the moon, the book was sealed for posterity. It wasn't until an accident that the original owner discovered it again. Immortal destiny is in front. Xuan will press the excitement in his heart and carefully flip open the cover. A large, wild line came into view. The heavenly plane has been overturned, and heaven and earth have been cut off. Ascension has been cut off, and transcendence cannot be achieved. The bitter fruits of our generation. Woe is me. This first sentence gave Xuan a confused look. What do you mean? There's no way to ascend? Am I late for the crossing? Skip the extraneous description and turn the page to continue down the page. In my humble opinion, today the spirit is scattered while the mystery exists. These two come out from the same place but have different names, and they are together split. The spirit, the marvelous of all marvels, is the split, which exists in heaven and earth. The Xian of all Xian, is the split, which is present in all beings. When I look at it, it is formless and shapeless. When I have studied it 100 times, it is close to the spirit, but beyond the spirit, nearly native. The meaning of this passage is simple. That great power, while sighing at the dissipation of the aura, accidentally discovered the existence of a being named Zhen. Xian exists within all living beings, whether it's feathers, Koan scales, Tom's shoes, gold stones, grass, trees and wind, all possess metaphysical qualities. Compared to spirit, Xian was closer to the origin of the great Tao, and the mighty believe that man is the most metaphysical creature, enough to have 3 positions of metaphysical convergence. It is called the entranceway. They are the upper, middle and lower dantian. The upper dantian is in the brow and hides the spirit, the middle dantian is in the chest and hides the qi, and the lower dantian is in the lower abdomen and hides the essence. If one could use the residual aura to activate the 3 metaphysical passages, use your physical body as an abundance, and plant grass, trees and gold stones in the 3 dantians, to recluse oneself from the world and cultivate the world. Absorb the essence of the sun and moon to cultivate the medicinal properties. Eventually, the cave was used as a furnace to refine the medicinal properties into the physical body. This is the realm of the human elixir. Blessed life can be prolonged for more than 100 years, with an evergreen appearance. The ancient book did not go further into the later realms, but the explanations were extremely detailed. It's even as if the person reading the book is considered a layman, with easy-to-understand notes under each term. It can be regarded as an essential textbook for the introduction to immortal cultivation. Xuan's brows furrowed and there was always a strange feeling in the bottom of his heart. Closing the book, he once again scrutinized the 3 words on the cover, and the more he read, the more odd it became. Evil, truly evil, to actually use human flesh as a medicine field. Is this really an immortal cultivation method and not alchemy? Maybe it was just an accident. Happened to take an evil book? After hesitating for a moment, Xuan still wrapped the Trident Sutra. Not fixing it is not fixing it, so I can't say it will be useful in the future. Seeing that a leaf can peek into the forest, the appearance of the three Dan scriptures implies the existence of the immortal cultivation law in this world. But the bad news is that it might be different from his perception of cultivation. After reading the scriptures, Xuan completely lost his sleepiness while feeling confused about the future direction. Looking into the moonlight haze, the confusion quickly blends into the rippling mind. Xuan simply sat up, legs interlocked, hands on the knees, in the shape of 5 hearts toward the sky, sitting on his knees. The cultivation method of the Sandan Sutra is useless for the time being. However, it contains explanations of acupoints and chakras, meditation and internal observation. Just what Xuan needed at the moment. It's easy to empty your mind in an ancient state of mind. Rhythmically adjust your breathing as described in the ancient texts and let the consciousness, if any, sink. Gradually, the mouth and nose exhaled and inhaled with a slower and slower frequency. On another long exhalation, a surge of clear air scurried through the body as if it were a spirit mouse. The clear chi runs along the meridian points, from the Baihui point to the Yongquan, and then circulates from the Yongquan to Baihui. This is called an inner view of a small circumference. From rusty to skillful, Xuan only used a short 3 times. After 3 times, the circumferential movement became faster and faster. A small, fully transparent figure emerges from the emptied brain, whose movements, breathing rate, etc., exactly the same as Xuan. The dormant consciousness awakens again, and is actually able to view the villain internally through a third-person perspective. So amazing! Except for the consciousness but not feeling the presence of the body. The unimpeded feeling of being free from the limitations of the physical body caused Xuan's consciousness to fly around inside his body like a child. After having a good time, he remembered the next step. Approach the 3 metaphysical passages to feel what metaphysical is. What's going on here? When Xuan's consciousness approached the inner viewer villain, he was dumbfounded. The Sandan Sutra says that human beings are the eldest of all metaphysics, with 3 full metaphysical passages. But, on his inner view of the little man, however, there were a full 7. It's not all 3 Dantian locations, either. The top of the head, the eyebrows, the throat, the heart, the navel, the genitals, and the bottom of the sea. Regular practitioners of immortality know the significance of these 7 places. In Buddhism, this is the location of the 7 chakras. In Taoism, these 7 places represent the 7 pranas: Tianchong prana, Linghui prana, Qi prana, Li prana, Zhongzhong prana, Jing prana, Ing prana. What shocked Xuan even more was, 6 of his 7 pranas were still in a state of chaos, as in a fog. Can't distinguish anything, but at the top of the head, that is, in the Xianguan of the Tianchong prana, there was actually a flash of golden light. As the realization drew closer, one could even hear the roar of the golden light as it leapt. That was clearly the heaven and earth vision that had appeared in front of the Chenha temple. White Sun Golden Thunder. Chapter 7, The Heavenly Rush and the Golden Thunder. The Golden Thunder vision is in my sky charge prana? After suppressing his shaken mind and adjusting his breathing a few times, he once again regained his unperturbed state of mind. As his consciousness operated, the golden thunder in the sky rushing prana changed in a succession of changes. Kind of funny, hey? Xuan was like a child who had been given a novelty toy, maneuvering the golden thunder to form an S shape a moment later. In a moment, the line formed. He could even feel that he could call the White Sun Golden Thunder out of the Xian Pass as long as he wished. When he recalled that the 3 Dan scriptures wanted to plant grass, trees, and gold stones in the Xian passage, his heart instantly had a guess. Could it be that I have incorporated the heaven and earth visions into the Xianguan? Does that make sense? Xuan's mouth was skeptical, but in actuality, he was smiling like a flower. Other people only have 3 metaphysical passages, he has a full 7. Other people grow flowers and plants in their Xian passages and bury gold and stone. Instead, he was able to contain heaven and earth visions. Just a short burst of smugness, and then a mind-enforced calm. Xuan was also gradually getting used to sudden changes in mood. What exactly was the factor that caused him to accommodate the golden thunder vision? His mind replayed all the experiences in the Chenha temple. Xuan tried his best to recall every detail, every feeling. At that time, I seemed to enter a metaphysical state. It's as if I've lost my physical body and merged into heaven and earth. Recalling the change in the attitude of the courtiers before the reading of the poem, Xuan murmured out softly, "Is it because of people's attitudes?" Again, there was a vague feeling in the back of my mind that the guesses were not all right. Forget it. If you can't figure it out, just don't think about it for now. There'll be plenty of opportunities later anyway. According to the Sandan Sutra, 1 Xian is a barrier. and when all three Xian are opened, one has attained the way, and as long as one opens an esoteric gate, one can be counted as entering the Tao. Gu Xian, who had inexplicably stepped onto the path of cultivation, was so excited that he couldn't help but show off his skills. Flipping out the Sandan Sutra, he carefully read the method of stimulating the inner nourishment of the Xianguan several more times. When he had recited it backwards, he tugged the sleeve with his left hand and squeezed his right hand to make a sword finger. Snapping his eyes open, there was a hidden essence of light shooting out. Again, he used his finger as a sword and swung it forward in a dashing manner. Drink softly, go! Puffy 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 puffy. The interior remained quiet, and nightbirds seemed to fly over the top of the hut. Undeterred, Gu Xian stretched his head to look out, just in time to see a dark cloud about to cover the long moon. The night breeze was slightly colder, causing him to shrink back with a slight jolt, wrapping his collar tightly around him. The imagined scene of waving his finger like a sword and chopping out golden thunder did not appear. Seems not to work? Fingers still sticking out mid-sentence. The huge discrepancy caused Gu Xian to be embarrassed to the point of embarrassment, and his sword fingers curled slightly to scratch his cheeks. Once again, he turned to the Sandan Sutra, ready to ponder what went wrong. Suddenly, the wind blowing into the hut grew stronger. The ancient book drop was blown to the ground. Instead of picking it up, Gu Xian stood up godlessly, walked out of the hut and looked up at the sky. All the emotions in his eyes dissipated and turned into indifference and inaction. Clouds churned and fog covered the dense. Something seemed to be birthing in the night sky. Puffing dash. The wild instincts of animals are always keen, and as the dreary atmosphere pressed into the forest, the countless flying birds were the first to flutter their wings and flee in terror, flying close to the ground, not daring to approach the sky. No one saw that Gu Xian, who was indifferently looking at the clouds, had a ray of golden light reflected in his pupils. Rumble dash. The golden thunder poured out like a pillar, instantly illuminating the forest as if it were daytime. Under the suppression of the brilliant heavenly might, the beasts trembled and prostrated themselves on the ground. Even if danger came at this moment, and they don't put up any resistance. Squeak! In the treetops, groups of wild monkeys were awakened from their dreams by the sound of thunder and fell to the ground one after another, wailing in agony. Gu Xian could feel that this time, the golden thunder had an indescribable connection with him. He reached toward the sky, trying to imperialize the thunder. A beam of lightning turned with it, and when it would have fallen straight down it twisted and it landed on the top of the tallest tree in front of the drunken immortal lodge. The sudden light stung his eyes, causing Gu Xian to raise his sleeve to cover his eyes and blink his eyes that were being shaken. But when the lightning went out, he was bewildered. Gone? The tree that was big enough for two adults to wrap their arms around actually disappeared. It wasn't until the wind and sand lifted up that the tree was blown away into pieces. Under the golden thunder, all beings are ants. However, Gu Xian's face did not look good, and even lingered with the aftermath of the robbery. Out of control. I can't control the golden thunder? That's right. Although he could conjure up the golden thunder vision, he was unable to operate it meticulously. When Gu Xian struck the golden thunder but instantly lost control, I thought I had a kill move, but I didn't realize it was just an ambient group. Gu Xian smacked his lips, randomly splitting a lucky spectator? Any less luck and it might even split him up together. Wiping a non-existent cold sweat from his forehead, and feeling his whole body shivering with. In his heart, he silently listed golden thunder as a forbidden technique. In the future, don't use this move if you can. It's too dangerous. A full quarter of an hour passed before the thunderclouds dispersed. The night sky was much brighter after being washed by the golden light, and the stars were shining brightly. Several elongated shadows sneaked out of the peach forest. It turned out to be a couple of bold wild monkeys, each scratching their ears and jumping up and down. The leader of the full-sized monkey. In contrast, a lot of calm, most likely a monkey king. They came to the tree that was reduced to pieces. Squeak squeak. Suddenly, a little monkey suddenly cheered out, stretching his furry paws about to touch into the wood powder. But he was stopped by the monkey king carrying him by the back of the neck, and instead picked up a long branch and rummaged around with his hands instead. It didn't take long to sweep a hard object out of the dust. It looked like the heart of a tree, but there were flashes of gold light, bright and dark, in the pattern. After rolling on the ground for a while, the Monkey King carefully touched it before holding it in his palm. The heart of the tree became extremely strange, obviously wood, but the hardness was comparable to stone. The Monkey King felt the hot temperature. His heart rose some odd feeling, subconsciously turned his head to look at the hut. In that moment, its eyes were as complex as a human's. Only when he heard the movement of the monkeys leaving did Gu Xian exhale a heavy breath of turbid air and sit spread-eagled on the haystack. If that group of wild monkeys knew that golden thunder had something to do with him, they wouldn't be able to say that they would swarm all over him. After evoking the golden thunder vision, His entire physical strength was as if it had been emptied out of him. This is a real handful. After focusing on adjusting the breathing, the chest rises and falls evenly and the breath flows smoothly. Recovering some of his energy, Xuan once again crossed his legs and entered the inner sanctuary. This time, he was more skillful. After running for only 3 small circumference days, the inner viewer villain was evoked. The 6 metaphysical points on the villain remain gray and unchanged. However, the heavily rushed prana located at the position of the villain's head was quite a bit dimmer than it was in the first interview. Is it hard to do any damage? The golden thunder is Xuan's only means at the moment, so he can't afford to lose it. Immediately, he manipulated his consciousness to approach the sky-rushing prana. Sure enough, there was one less golden thunder vision contained in the sky-charged prana, with only 3 remaining. It's not supposed to be expendable. Xuan hurriedly withdrew from the interview and touched and found the 3 Dan scriptures, searching for the method of nourishing the medicinal properties therein. If you don't figure that out, you won't feel comfortable using it in the future. After half a second, Xuan opened his eyes. After testing, the heart is a little more at ease. Good news. Golden thunder was not expendable. As long as there is still a golden thunder in the sky-rushing spirit as a seed, it will be able to spawn a new golden thunder. But there's more bad news. Because the embodiments were different, he couldn't use the sun essence and moonflower mentioned in the 3 Dan scriptures to embrace the golden thunder. But it wasn't all for naught. Perhaps it was due to the fact that the heavenly punching spirit was used to contain the vision. With each internal observation, Xuan's 5 senses were slightly enhanced. After all that had happened this night, Xuan had no desire to sleep. Simply continue to meditate and wait for the dawn. Early the next morning, crisp birdsong surrounded and echoed through the mountains and forests. The sun was rising, and it was steaming warm on the drunken immortal lodge. Xuan's eyebrows trembled slightly as he leisurely opened up. The first thing he did when he woke up was to stretch. Aha! It's a marvelous feeling. Obviously my body is exhausted, but my brain is incredibly clear. Maybe that's what's often referred to as spiritual power? The roof of the lodge is so low that when you straighten up slightly, you hit the top and can't move around the house at all. Xuan figured that the group of wild monkeys' anger should have subsided, so he removed the wooden board. The sudden brightness of the light irritated his eyes, and he covered them for a moment to get used to it. The sky is clear and cloudless. Xuan stretched his body recklessly, his bones clacking, and the good weather made his mood much happier. It's a great day for an outing. Anyone else up the hill? After a night of meditation, Xuan's hearing and eyesight improved quite a bit, and when footsteps sounded within 100 meters, he could still tell the difference. His heart was a little quieter, his ears twitching slightly as he listened in detail to the sound of footsteps crunching through the leaves. Tap, tap. There were 7 men, carrying something heavy up the hill. The target is clearly coming this way. Those who knew the location of the drunken immortal lodge were none other than those few people. Doing a little mental math, Xuan quickly had a number. When the silhouette was revealed between the trees before the silhouette could be seen, Xuan asked aloud, "Where did His Highness the Crown Prince get the good sense to come to my hut again?" Chapter 8, The Prince's Quest for Immortality. The visitors were indeed as Xuan had heard, totaling 7 people. The leader of the group, with a dignified and imposing face, took the lead and came in a dragon's stride. It's none other than the Crown Prince of Daton, Li Mingji. The 6 Rexes dressed in green power suits, carrying the mahogany box 2x2, followed closely behind. Before they even met, Xuan's voice could be heard coming from afar. With a heartfelt sigh of wonder, Li Mingji quickened his pace through the peach grove and straightened his sleeves when he reached the level of, hands cupped in front of his torso and bowed respectfully. "Cure, pay your respects to Mr. Gu, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Please rise." Just after assisting Li Mingji, the Rexes carrying the boxes also arrived in front of the hut. Seeing his master paying homage, one by one, they dropped their boxes and followed suit, kneeling in a heap. Xuan was not used to these and called up one by one, "All rise." Li Meiji obediently stood up and waved his hand to signal the Rexes to open the box. 3 wooden boxes, all with red lacquer and gold locks, opened from left to right. They are, a box of emerald onyx beauty gemstones, glittering, a box of gold unicorn play silver bravery, lifelike, a box of 1,000 years of ancient paintings, rich history. Pick any one of the 3 boxes and it will be priceless. Just this Li Mingji still feel unworthy of Gu Xianshi. Arching his hand shyly he said, "Mr. Gu, this is part of the thin gift the cure promised you. The mountain roads are difficult and the treasures are delicate and not well transported. The cure took it upon himself to purchase a small courtyard for Mr. Shangjing. The China curiosities, etc., have been properly placed." Xuan swept over the treasures and nodded slightly. There was little expression on his face, and he couldn't see the slightest bit of joy. It was as if these gold and silver jewels were less likely to move him than a mountain full of flowers and plants. Have a heart. Xuan smiled lightly at the crown prince. The smile was forced, because, inside, he was just about to drip blood. So many treasures, and a suite in the capital for nothing. Unfortunately, you can only look at it and not take it away. Drop money na dash. Just as Xuan was calming his wounded heart, Li Mingji wordlessly walked in front of him and then flopped decisively to his knees. The cure has an ungrateful request today. I hope you'll grant it. This kneeling, directly to Xuan whole-blinded, startled to assist up. Why would the crown prince do that? Just tell me what's going on. Who expected that Li Mingji seemed to be rooted in his knees, and refused to move even for a moment. Clasping his hands in front of him and hanging his head downward, he said sincerely, though he has already reached the crown, he is still as ignorant as a child, and has spent more than 20 years in a state of confusion. Yesterday, listening to Mr. Words, cure go back to the enlightenment of 100 times, but like the purest enlightenment, the benefit is endless, and I hope Mr. will take him under his wing. Cure, I will serve in front of Mr. Seat with all my heart and soul. I will not regret it in this life. Li Meiji spoke firmly and did so in an extreme manner, but in Xuan's eyes, he was acting like a rogue who wouldn't get up until he agreed. Nearly gave him a laugh. I've never seen such a prince who doesn't want to have a face. Isn't this just a shrewish scoundrel? Xuan smiled and tapped his shoulder, signaling him to look to the side. Crown Prince, you get up first. Let's talk slowly about worshipping the master. Look, you're making a joke of the wild monkeys on the mountain. A few wild monkeys came from the neighboring peach trees at some point, dragged the family out there to watch the fun. The first one was a circle bigger, about the king of monkeys. Li Meiji happened to meet his eyes when he looked over and stood up a little embarrassed. The heart wondered, how did that monkey's eyes look like a human's? The drunken immortal lodge was too small, much less a place to sit down. Xuan didn't leave the entry because he was too ashamed. It just so happens that the sun is also warm today, simply pulling Li Mingji to bask in the warmth of an open field. Xuan smiled and said, the crown prince came on this trip with a high-ranking person appointed. Is Gu Mao right? Until yesterday, Li Mingji had been receiving a royal salary, and his monthly salary was only 110 taels. Even since he was a child, he didn't spend a single piece of silver, and his entire body's belongings could only barely come up with a box. So many treasures, obviously pulled out of some old fox's vault. Furthermore, although Li Meiji is a simpleton who acts gently, he is also a man who emphasizes courtesy. What kind of person kneels down right away? It's because Emperor Hong said something to him, as if he had been told what was on his mind. Li Meiji arched his hand in shyness. Mr. God's wisdom, the cure is indeed appointed by someone. Ran, cure want to worship Mr. Teacher of this mood is not false. I hope Mr. Promised. Xuan had already guessed it as early as when the crowd went up the mountain. At this moment, he was not surprised and asked in return. Oh, I wonder what the prince would like to learn from Gu. Li Mingji thought he was recognized and rejoiced. What you know, sir, the cure is willing to learn. That Gu can't teach. Without waiting for Li Meiji to return to his senses, Xuan raised his hand to point at the Monkey King and asked, Prince, can you teach the wild monkeys to learn human language? Since I can't. Li Mingji did not understand the meaning of the question, and then asked, Sir, the treatment of immortal flesh, how can you teach a beast to speak? Only an immortal like you, sir, can. Who knows? The complimented Xuan shook his head instead, still looking at the monkey. Nonetheless, it is not difficult to teach a beast man to speak, but a farmer in the field may do so. Does the prince know what the difficulty is? A farmer can teach a beast human speech? How is that possible? The Monkey King, ignorantly sensing that this question was important to him, leaped down the tree in a single bound. Bravely, he took 2 steps forward to hear more closely. Xuan sold the story for a while, causing Li Mingji to scratch his ears anxiously. On the contrary, the big monkey was still calmly crouching in the distance. It seemed to want to sit down on its knees like Xuan, but it was grimacing because of the pain in its bone structure. In the end it was all about crouching on your knees. Xuan, who had been watching its small movements, was heartily pleased. Hey, there's something about this monkey. By the look of Li Mingji, most likely he didn't know. Xuan also stopped hanging onto his appetite and straightened his expression. If a genus of wild beasts wants to spit out human words and practice human manners, need to melt away the crossbones first. Once the crossbones are transformed, spiritual wisdom will open up, free from ignorant beasts. It is a demon. With this, one can step into the way of seeking truth. In the distance, the Monkey King who was crouching on his knees seemed to have heard the mysteries of heaven and earth, and his body trembled with excitement. A pair of eyes even looked at Xuan without blinking for a moment. what the monkey could understand. Lee Myunji was still at a loss. However, he always seeks the truth. Will not is not. Immediately asked for advice, rule stupid. And please, sir, solve the problem. Hey, Guxian sighed lightly without a trace, secretly saying that Emperor Hong's father and son really complemented each other. One is overbrained, the other under-enlightened. After a brief moment of contemplation, Guxian refaced himself towards Li Mingji. Immortal dharma isn't difficult. It's the immortal fate that's difficult. Those with immortal karma can cultivate by leaps and bounds in a single day. He who has no immortal destiny first knocks at the door and seeks the way, as if he were transforming and refining the horizontal bones. The crown prince has not yet refined the horizontal bone, so how can he learn my teachings? As the words fell, Guxian left him enough time to ponder. I pondered and comprehended for a long time, until, at 3 o'clock in the morning, only then did Li Mingji come to a realization. Immortal fate. Seeking immortality first seeks fate. Mr. is saying that the karma for entering the immortal path is equivalent to the crossbones of a wild beast? Well, the crown prince's comprehension is still fair. Guxian brushed his sleeves and praised against his will. Li Mingji rolled over for a week and stood up, not caring about being dirty, bowed again and worshipped. Cure. It is not afraid of being difficult. I also hope that the gentleman will teach the cure how to dissolve the horizontal bone. Finally, it's time to enter the path. Guxian nodded approvingly, braced himself on the ground and stood up, patting the grass scum behind his robes. When he looked up, he saw that the monkey had taken a few more steps closer. Quite bold. He just thought the monkey was naughty by nature and didn't care. Guxian, with his hands behind his back, took 2 steps forward and came between a man and a monkey. Trickster said, "It's not easy to enter the immortal fate under me. One needs to find rootless water and fire in water. And things must be done or they will not work." Li Mingji repeated the 2 names in his mouth and heard Guxian add them again. Of course, the immortal edge trial is more than that. It has requirements. This rootless water requires a cloudy time and a cloudy calendar, and the fire in the water requires gold in the stone. Gumao's test. It's not going to be easy, Your Highness. The Crown Prince still needs to seriously consider it as well. Guxian was quite satisfied with the problems he had created. Both of these things are hard to say and easy to say. However, in terms of that comprehension of Li Myunji, it wasn't that he looked down on. Well, he had a billion throws to look down on. If Li Mingji could really find these 2 things, it would be a qualification to enter Tai Wei. What's the harm in taking him under your wing? While Li Mingji was still pondering, Guxian looked into the distance and mentioned as if he was not thinking, "By the way, Mr. Gu is going out to visit a good friend recently. Take these belongings. Gu Mao's grass hut is shabby, but can't forbid the air of beads and splendor. Leave? Where are you going, sir?" Hearing that Guxian was going out, Li Mingji immediately became anxious. His father had instructed him 1,000 times, ask him to leave Guxian in Datong. What if Mr. travels far away? Will I ever see you again in this life? Guxian knew that the conversation at this moment would mean the Hong Emperor's attitude towards him. Turning his eyes and wringing his hands, it is bound to attract suspicion. Fortunately, he had planned ahead, and casually said, "The Crown Prince," and relaxed. "GE's best friend is in Datong territory. Go before the summer and return before the mango." Guxian pointed at the peach tree and laughed. "Gu Mao can wait to come back to eat peaches. Then, cure, and have a safe journey, sir." Having said that, Li Mingji could not stay. If he was more forceful, he might get bored. Guxian sighed again in his heart. Hey, enlightenment is really no good. It's still not as good as a wild monkey. Seeing that Li Mingji was mute to such an extent, he had no choice but to open his mouth cheekily. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, Gu is a square outsider with only 2 sleeves. This trip into the world with no yellow or white body. I need to ask the Crown Prince for some convenience." "Ha, sir. Oh, that's what it means." Li Mingji patted his head, unlocked the waist pouch, lightly thrown in the palm of his hand to weigh the weight. "I am in such a hurry that I have only 1 ingot of 50 taels of silver with me. When will you start your journey, sir?" "Cure ordered to be sent. Count on your resourcefulness this time." No need to bother. Gu can just borrow a small object. Where? This would have been gained for the gentleman. Li Mingji waved his hands in succession and, on the contrary, he was ashamed that he had brought so little money with him, and that he had to sell the objects to the gentleman. Guxian, who had already made his plans at the very beginning, slowly walked towards the chest where the beautiful jades and gems were piled up. Pick a white jade hairpin from it, smoothly removing the peach branch that had been inserted into her hairbun. Her soft silky auburn hair poured down to her waist. The declining sun's handsome features were a little less indifferent and a little more soft, with the peach branches dotted with freshness in the background. It is really like a peach fairy in the world. I won't take yours for nothing. This peach hairpin has been with me for many days, although there is no miracle yet. It has the effect of tending to the good and avoiding the bad. Meiji Lee accepted it with both hands respectfully. At first glance, it was just a flat peach branch, but with a slightly smoother texture. Smell has a burst of strange fragrance, can be smelled to calm the mind. However, when turning without thinking, there was a hidden flash of internalized divine light in the veins. The faster it spins, the more divine it becomes. I see. Mr. is using this as an excuse to gift me a magic treasure. Though you speak harshly, sir, you provide me with a boost in this way. Never let Mr. down. Secretly determined. Li Mingji excitedly busy worship. Thank you, Mr. Give treasure. Where could Xuan see his mental activities? Having long ago tossed and played with the white jade hairpin with one hand, the edge turned away. And you will leave on your own. There is no need to follow. Mingji, be attentive. When I return from my visit to my friends, I will be examining your results. As he passed by the wild monkey, Xuan was in the right mood at the moment, and looked at the man-learning monkey in a favorable light. Jokingly, he said, "Little monkey, I'll ask you to take care of Gumao's grass hut for a moment or two." He had said it casually, but he saw the wild monkey nod as if he understood. It even straightened up and, cupping his hands in a difficult bow toward him, Xuan was stunned and amused again, and left with a laugh in the sky. Haha, extraordinary spirituality. Extraordinary spirituality. Go, and go to. Chapter 9, The Principal Caravan. Status, 403 from https://quaishu5/b2583888/7666021. HTML failed to retrieve the content of this paragraph, no text content. Chapter 10. Want me to travel with you? Seeing the hunchbacked old man arching his hand in invitation, Xuan was too embarrassed to play the weary fool again. Palms underneath his body, he sat up in a cross-legged position. Your Excellency has misunderstood. What my lord means is that if your Excellency is interested in traveling northward, you may travel with the caravan for a while. As he spoke, old Xuan pulled on the donkey's ears to save it from drilling into others. I wonder where your caravan is going? How much does the road cost? Looking at the specs, one could recognize that it was an experienced caravan, with an escort guard, full security. It just so happened that Xuan didn't have a map in his hands and knew very little about this world, so it was naturally good to be able to follow. But that was all the money he had on him in total, so in case he asked for an expensive price, he had no choice but to refuse. No need. It's just that my master wants to make a connection with you. Old Xuan compensated with a smile, fearing that Xuan would refuse, and simply said, Your Excellency need not worry. The name of our Xin caravan still speaks for itself. The destination of this trip was North Sangzhou on the Guanshan Road. On the way, we will pass through 2 routes in 7 states. And all the food will be taken care of by our caravan. The male can always leave on his own if he has an idea. And that's a good thing? Xuan pondered that he, a big old man, would not be sold. Moreover, since the heavenly punching spirit had incorporated the golden thunder, his senses had grown sharper and sharper, vaguely able to perceive the good and bad attitudes of others towards him. Not long ago I had no intention of meeting the rich man in the leading carriage. The attitude towards him changed abruptly from cold to friendly. Xuan greeted him despite his surprise. After a brief moment of thought, Xuan cheekily arched his hand in return. Then I'll be intruding. My humble self Xuan. I don't know what your name is, old man? Old Xuan was flabbergasted. And when he reacted, he bared his teeth and waved his hand. It's not that expensive, he said. Call it not precious. I am Huang Tian. And you can just call me Old Huang. Oh, Uncle Huang is polite. Old Huang's mouth said make no mistake. But the folds of his smile piled up together again. This is a world of pandering to the rich and bullying the poor. He's been a slave all his life. How could he have ever heard such words? But for Xuan, the virtue of honoring the old and loving the young was engraved in his bones. As long as you don't meet a bare child or a bare old man, a word or two of respect won't cost you a piece of meat. People give convenience. Mouth always dessert. The 2 men, one willing to nag and the other willing to hold forth, had a lively conversation. The burro took the opportunity to stretch out its long, fishy hot tongue towards Xuan, but luckily old Huang saw its intentions and raised his hand and smacked it. Old Yellow tugged on the donkey's ears to pull it closer to the boulder so that Xuan could sit on it, smilingly inviting, Please come up, sir. My donkey may be ugly and dumb, but it's got a lot of strength. The physical strength is not inferior to that of an ordinary horse. He didn't have the heart to brag too much. He also wondered how the always obedient old fellow could have been so humiliated today. While talking, Xuan was also fully dressed. Surveying the donkey all over, he casually praised it. Fat and strong, docile and hard-working. A good donkey. Who knows? the restless donkey sniffing obediently low body. More convenient Guxian can ascend. Hey, what are you? Old Yellow's eyes had seen the burrow change back and forth, and his heart was amazed. Then Mr. Gu will not be polite. Guxian stepped forward on the stone and sit firmly on the burrow. The two just nagged their way forward. From old Huang, Guxian learned that the purpose of their trip was North Sangzhou, located on the Guanshan Road. The Tatung territory is divided into Dao State County. In total, there are 13 provinces and 56 prefectures. And as for the counties and the villages under their jurisdiction, there are even more. Whereas Sangzhou is located in the northernmost part of Datong's territory, bordering the northern border of Fengguang, Baimen, and Phaitarta. There are frequent wars throughout the year. It's been better in recent years, and I've heard that it's the preparation of a war between several nations in the north. The essence of all businessmen is to seek profit, and the goods are passed on to the people. Although the livelihood resources of the northern realm are barren, there are many mineral resources. Led by the Sher family, a group of small businessmen are ready to take this opportunity to take a shot. Old Huang, on the other hand, having seen the earlier scene, treated Guxian as a hermit who had been avoiding the world for years. There's no reason why adults shouldn't know what these yellow mouths know. On the contrary, Guxian's insights were beyond the norm, and the gods were very strange. Strange everywhere. At this moment, he was in a bit of a dilemma, not knowing where to place Guxian. It's not good to ride with Master Shek. Master Shek was stabbed by an outlaw the other day. Now the injury is not yet healed. You should not sit for a long time. The wagon was small enough that neither of them would be comfortable riding together. The wagons and omnibus crates that carry the goods are likewise inoperative, and the unusual hitchhiker will make do with what he has. But this is the one that the master strongly wanted to invite, and old Huang has a soft spot for him. That windblown, dirty, messy of a place is not a place to stay. All that remained were the wagons of the other merchants, though most of them were dragging their families. But old Huang asked himself to have too thin face in, begging on a beg or can make a seat. Let's make do, and when we get to the next county fix, let the handyman squeeze in a little bit, clean out a clean carriage. Just as old Huang was thinking this, Guxian behind him abruptly spoke. Uncle Huang, who is in this car? Looking in the direction he was pointing, the carriage was square and wide, and though no square flag hung behind it, but a silver spear was inserted, and the sound of breaking wind was sharp. From a distance, Guxian could also feel the blood chi gushing out like substance. There is clearly someone high up within it. Oh, this room inside are a few great warriors. I won't hide it from you, sir, but our caravan is out and about. The most feared is the strong man bandits, kind-hearted some of the ground to seek some money, but more are, not only to rob all the goods, even people are taken captive and skinned for meat. Old Huang recalled with trepidation. Our Xian and merchant caravan has always been kind to people. However, 3 months ago, the caravan was robbed while traveling from Bailuzhou to Shangjing. Half of the caravan's goods were looted. Several merchants were taken with their families. When the officials reported the bandits, I followed them. The bandits were cunning and cautious. I don't know where it scurried off to. And yet we see dash. When he said this, he suddenly bent his back even more and couldn't stop trembling. It took a while for the mood to ease a little. His pale, cloudy eyes filled with fear. My lord, you may think I'm talking nonsense, but I swear on my life, that half of the hill, it's all man's land. All of them were buried in the ground, their exposed faces mostly hollowed out by maggots. Eyes, nose, ears, they were plucked out, but their tongues were left behind to wail day after day. The broken open chest cavity bulged, and an officer had the courage to cut it open with his knife, only to find it stuffed with herbs, like someone was growing medicine from them. The memory was so frightening that old Huang finished panting and his back was drenched in cold sweat. He had lived for more than 60 years and thought he had seen everything, but not once as bizarre as that. When he heard no response from behind him, he secretly spat at himself. How could he not have a good handle on his mouth? What if this scares people? He didn't realize that Guxian was incomparably shocked at the moment. A human field? Raising herbs? Why does it sound so much like the Sandan Sutra? Could it be that many copies of the 3 Dan scriptures exist? The more Guxian thought about it, the more confused he became, associating it with the odd cultivation method of the 3 Dan scriptures, as well as the personal experiences described by old Huang. It seems to show that there are groups of obsessed people who have worn out their humanity in order to seek the way. The most frightening thing is that they have even gone so rampant as to commit murder in the vicinity of the capital of a country. The upper capital. Guxian's heart couldn't help but sink. The world. I'm afraid it's going to be worse than I thought. Old Yellow didn't know this, and he tugged at the corners of his mouth, chatting about light topics to lighten the mood. So when we set out again this time, His lordship spent a great deal of money to invite a few great warriors to accompany us. I've heard that it can be ranked in the entire Jianghu. Don't worry, Your Excellency. Gu Xian's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he even voiced his request. Uncle Huang, Mr. Gu is quite curious about the affairs of the Jianghu. May I ask you to introduce me? The road to figuring out how to contain the heaven and earth visions was destined to be long, and the Golden Thunder did not listen to the call. The world under the bright side is treacherous, dangerous and murderous. He was now in desperate need of a means of self-preservation. Chapter 11, The Three of Us. Status, 403 from https://quaishu5/b2583888/7666023. HTML failed to retrieve the content of this paragraph, no text content. Chapter 12, Mr. Heavenly Beauty. Dade. The always gentle Sonia was once again stoked with fire. He repeatedly told his brothers to go out with peace for good. The only way to make things easy for people is to make things easy for yourself. However, Kong Dade is a stubborn and smelly person with a bad mouth, and often gets into trouble with people. Sonia don't even know how many times it's clear that they can shake hands and make peace, being stirred alive by this second brother of his. Still, he couldn't do anything to reprimand his brother in front of outsiders. Can only temporarily suppress the fire in the heart, squeeze out a smile and turn the face just to compensate for the smile. Sir, The sound of the words went out the instant he locked eyes with Gu Xian, and Sonia was unknowingly disturbed. What a pair of eyes that is. Calm, indifferent, bland, nearly unfeeling. A smile was clearly on his lips, but there was no emotion in his eyes. Gu Xian did not do anything, obviously sitting quietly in front of the eyes, but it is like transcending the mortal world. At any moment, he will be feathered and fly. In contrast, the repeatedly provocative Kong Dade is as ridiculous as a jumping clown. Sonia was infected by his ancient state of mind for a moment. For only a moment, but he saw through his eyes the wide, boundless, and endlessly extending avenue. Returning to the monkey, Sonia held his head and suddenly remembered a sentence. I can't remember which book it was in though. The saints forget love, the most inferior to love, and the love of love is being in my generation. He aimed at Gu Xian with a palpitating heart, his heart marveling beyond measure. Let there be 1,000 thoughts of love. I am at peace within myself. This state of mind that doesn't feel happy or angry with anything else actually exists? This man. No. What kind of realm has this gentleman reached? For a moment, Sonia was caught up in shocked and disturbed thoughts, unable to care about the outside world, causing Kong Dade to think he was right. His guts grew when he came over and pulled his voice. Big brother, you don't know. The Cosmos Emperor searched all over for true cultivators some time ago. I have heard that many capable Fengshi have been invited. Not only can they ride the clouds, command insects and beasts, it can also avoid evil. That's right. Didn't that big brother Jean Lei see it yesterday? Sonia retrieved his mind and nodded hesitantly. Right, but isn't that a vision? That daytime golden thunder covered half of the upper capital, and the sound of thunder was as shocking as the tilting of the sky. It's hard not to notice. It is even rumored in private that Cosmos will die, and that the golden thunder is a precursor to the wrath of heaven. Is it hard to believe that this has something more to do with the fawns? Kong Dade mysteriously whetted the appetite of the crowd. Even the slits in the eyes of Kidney Hollow, who was lying in the back resting, widened slightly. Nonetheless, that white sun and golden thunder. It was summoned by a certain high person. Kong Dade was unusually excited when talking about gossip, opening his arms and gesticulating, with just the right amount of expression on his face. Quite the raconteur potential if not a little darker. It is said that that high man is a true immortal descending to the world. It was the 6th prince of the dynasty who spent a great deal of money to invite him out of the mountain. That immortal had no intention of displaying his heavenly means, but an ungrateful thieving Taoist repeatedly provoked him. When the immortal was furious, he immediately mouthed the heavenly constitution and spoke the law. Raising his head to the sky, he softly bellowed thunder to come. The heavens then should be covered with golden thunder. Gu Xian? No. Who spread this? Kong Dade added some details according to his own fantasies that none of the parties knew. Whether anyone else believed it or not, he believed it himself. That's not all. Recognizing that more than half of the founders in the court are liars and have upset the immortals. So the immortal added, punish the evil and bring the good. All the officials involved in punishing the charlatans and liars were blessed by the immortals. Some people are reborn with a broken arm, and others are even prolonging their lives for a long time. Kong Dade staggered back and forth and couldn't help but say sourly, what a damn shame. I heard that the group of officials are not as strong as a woman. If I were present, I could directly tear that group of godly men into 2 halves. When he read godly cleric, Kong Dade stared at Gu Xian, his loud voice intentionally rising a few degrees. Sonia somehow also looked towards Gu Xian to see, his heart a little puzzled. It wasn't until Kidney Void raised his leg and kicked Kong Dade that he continued on down the line. Ha! Oh, that immortal was going to ascend and leave. A few drinks at the invitation of Emperor Hiroshi on the occasion of parting. It doesn't matter if you don't drink it, but that wine. Ah! It's even more beautiful than even the heavenly immortal wine. The immortal who was so good at wine was so delighted that he immediately agreed to become a Cosmos State Mastermile. Speaking of having an immortal as a state teacher, Kong Dao straightened his back a few more points, topped the loose bun on the roof of the car. How in the world can this happen? Sonya muttered. There are so many myths and legends circulating in the folklore that are falsified, but I didn't realize that there were actually real immortals alive. Suddenly, his thick eyebrows furrowed as if he were a crouching silkworm, noticing the abnormality. Dade, and how do you know that? He remembered that before he left the house yesterday. He clearly instructed Kong Dade to stay at the inn to keep an eye on the traveling gifts. And where did he learn all this? I just went out for a spin and heard it. Questioned. Kong Dao didn't dare to look at his big brother's sight, scratching his head and snorting. The waist and back shrunk again. In reality, he was craving patience and planned to go out and find a few bowls of wine to eat. Slipped into the middle of the street and saw a lot of people gathered together. I had to go in and ask a grandpa and a mom about it. Xuan realized that he had fallen for the old fox again. The sky appeared to have a vision, or a vision of bad significance like golden thunder. Instead of covering it up, Hondekin went on a rampage to spread the news. It was only slightly modified to give all the credit to Xuan. This would not only deflect the singing of the cosmos, they also fabricated the rumor that there is a true immortal in Datong as the state master. Deter that group of devil-may-care cultivators who were acting more and more recklessly. Finally, the name of the immortal is used to convey the attitude of dislike for the charlatan and liar. What was even more infuriating was that Xuan could only eat this dumb loss in a muffled voice. You can't just stand up and say you're not a national teacher, can you? Even in front of Emperor Hiroshi, he couldn't question it. How could this happen? I really don't know. The matter has come to a head, and since the people of Datong have embraced you so much, I hope that one of the state masters will not shirk. Kong Dao snorted angrily again, disdainfully scornful of Xuan. Humph, only that kind of character is a hermit outside the square. You're looking at this kid. Aside from being handsome, where does it look like a founder? Distinctly the most loathsome of the immortals. The godly. You. Xuan raised his hand to stop Sonya's words. Smilingly, he asked, and what do you think a capable person should look like? That would naturally be a white-bearded, white-haired, crane. Crane. Kong Dade scratched his head and laughed nervously. Big brother, what's with the crane? Crane hair. Yes. Cranky hair. And you haven't even grown a few hairs. And you're out cajoling. When it's really a fight. Kong Dao ambled down and clenched his fist threateningly. Enough. Make amends and apologize. Sonya interrupted with a suppressed voice. What? Kong Dao's expression was stunned, unable to believe what he heard. Big brother, you're asking me to make amends to this liar? I said enough. Make amends to the gentleman. Under the full-blown anger, Sonya's body true chi turned. From the lower abdomen dantian stirred up the blood chi surging. Like a wave of strands rushing into every inch of muscle. The limbs and bones even resounded with cackling crunching sounds. You are unjust. Who a gust of strong wind rushed by in front of him, and Kong Dao rubbed the two of them and rushed out of the carriage. With one less person, the frame is instantly lighter. Collecting his palms and pressing down to calm his true chi, Sonya straightened his hair crown and smiled apologetically. Mr. Benevolent, but my generation has been repeatedly rude. It's good to let that murderer go out to blow the wind and wake up his brain, so that he doesn't have to talk nonsense all day long. No harm done. Mr. Gu doesn't care. Xuan pinched a fa seal to stabilize his mind. It's good that little Li Kuei has left. Sonya once again praised Xuan's heart. Compensating, he said. I heard Steward Huang say that Mr. is quite interested in the affairs of the Jianghu. If the gentleman asks anything, I shall do my best to do it. Xuan's eyes lit up with some surprise. He had wanted to spend a long time with him, playing the emotional card to slowly gain. I didn't expect Sonya to send them directly to each other in order to make amends. It's not a good idea to ask for too much, and it's not worth it to consume the favor all at once. After pondering for a moment, Xuan looked as if he was distressed. To tell the truth, Gumao has longed for the Jianghu for a long time. Nay, there is no doorway. Now that the roots and bones have grown, I wonder if there is still a possibility of entering the martial arts. In that case, nodded Sonya. Well said, if you don't mind. Mr. I'll take a root measurement for you, sir. Please. Upon receiving permission, Sonya hooked Xuan's left wrist with one hand and pinched up his shoulder with the other. Taking his pulse and feeling his bones, his brow furrowed. His expression gave Xuan the illusion as if he was waiting for the old Chinese doctor to lay down a diagnosis. After Songya let go of his hand, he couldn't help but open his mouth and ask, "Scholar Song, is there something I can do?" "Who knows?" Songya actually shook his head and sighed repeatedly. Weird. Mr's meridian pulsation and bone phase are truly strange, which I have never seen before. Seeing Xuan's complicated expression, he realized that it was inappropriate to say so and immediately explained. I am not a physician, and I know very little about pulses, so it is not good to jump to conclusions, but Sir's muscles are supple and his roots are excellent. But, as Sir said, the best time to build a foundation has been missed. Forcefully practicing martial arts. Instead, you'll fall sick. Xuan's heart thumped, but the means of self-preservation was right in front of him. He was never going to be willing to just give up. Is there a solution? Mr. Gu doesn't ask for much. Now that the world is in turmoil, I just want to be able to go out and have the means to defend myself. Well, naturally, but, after pondering for a while, Songya was a bit shy to open his mouth, but when he looked up and saw the faint anticipation under Xuan's eyes, still said, "It is difficult for a gentleman to be fruitful in the practice of unusual mysteries, but that's not entirely true. There exists a strange scripture in this world that has the divine ability to change one's life against the heavens." Xuan was moved to ask after him, "I wonder what it is." It is rumored that it was created by a great master, and the martial art is called the Celestial Human Transformation Technique. After you have acquired it, your body will be like a ghost and your power will increase overnight. As he spoke, Songya's line of sight shifted downward from time to time, and even his words stuttered a bit. However, to acquire this method, one needs to first cut off the uncleanness, and that great master has long been in seclusion. Rumor has it in the Jianghu that it's now hidden in the palace as an errand boy. Xuan's mind instantly flashed across an old eunuch's silent back. Eunuch Tak Choi? The divine life. Isn't this the ing sunflower magic? Chapter 13, Entering Lingen at Night. Although the celestial human transformation technique is almost held up as a myth and legend in the Jianghu, but because of these harsh conditions, few people will hit it. Expecting Xuan to rest his mind, Songya recalled Kong Dao's words not long ago. Then he made a funny comment to lighten the mood. If someone can get into the palace, who's looking for it for anything? I must be going to ask the master of the kingdom to grant the immortal destiny. From kings and lords to the common people, who does not aspire to immortality? Even if Songya can perform light power as light as a swallow, as usual, aspire to the clouds and fog immortal. Xuan grinned and let out a silent, bitter laugh, but he was keeping a book of immortal edge with human feels in his sleeve pocket. If Songya were to see this, he didn't know how he would feel. Without doing something for Xuan, Songya's heart wasn't clear, and after pondering for a while, only to see him slam his thigh. "Pa, not if it's like this. When we get to the next town to fix up, I'll mime a piece of internal martial arts for cultivating true chi for you. Sir, the effect is not guaranteed, but it is more or less effective in strengthening the body." After all was said and done, Xuan would appear to be ungrateful if he were to dwell on it, so he accepted the favor with folded hands. Mr. Gu has the audacity to thank Warrior Song. "You're welcome, sir." Songya makes amends to Xuan to get peace of mind, and Xuan gets to retreat to a second purpose. Both parties were quite satisfied and continued to talk and laugh about what they had seen and heard. Both of them are very knowledgeable and experienced, chatting with each other. The atmosphere is hot and pleasant. Clang clang clang. Suddenly from the front of the caravan drifted the sound of 3 gongs from afar. After hearing it, Songya stopped talking abruptly. Afterglow. Explaining to the puzzled Xuan, he said, "This is a sign that the merchant caravan is going to repair. We've arrived at the place." Chatting without feeling, time flew by, and it was only then that I realized that the sky outside the curtain was flooded with evening sunshine at some point. For safety reasons, the caravan would not move forward into the night. Generally, when you meet a city, you go into the city, and when you meet a village, you go into the village. When there is no village in front of you and no store behind you, just pick a flat spot and set up camp. Lifting the curtain of the car, Songya looked outward far enough to see 3 large characters on the city wall. "Oh, it's to Lingshan County." The wagon slowed to a halt and arrived at the county pass ready for tax inspection. While waiting in line to enter the county, Songya briefly introduced this place to Xuan. "I remember that the baklava in Lingshan County is a masterpiece, especially when it's fresh out of the oven. The crust is crispy and the texture is firm, and the bite is full of oily flavor. You must try it, sir." After chatting for a while, 2 soldiers in armor lifted the curtain. One of them held a pile of yellow paper in his hand toward the 3 men to compare them one by one. Xuan sat close enough that his afterglow spied what was supposed to be a bandit's wanted notice. The guards weren't too conscientious, and after a brief glance or two they waved their hands backward to let them pass. It is assumed that Master Shi paid all the taxes required for the entire caravan, and it was unimpeded. After crossing the pass, the roads in Lingshan County were as worn as the walls, not to mention paved with stone slabs. There were even a number of potholes and dents, and the wagon lurched badly. Although it was not as strictly managed as the upper capital city, it was still subject to martial law at this point in time. As we passed through the civilian areas, there were still people walking around, but they were hurrying with their heads hung low, too scared to even speak to each other. The vigilance was a little too much. Warrior song. What's that? Xuan asked, pointing in front of a room. That house is surrounded by a short fence, and behind that fence there's a small vegetable garden. But even if the vegetables rotted in the ground, no one would take them. The closed door with its couplet was coated with something black, and on the ground about 5 feet directly in front of the door, a rectangle covered in rags was laid out. I am not too sure. Perhaps it is some sort of custom? Sonya was also a bit strange. He hadn't seen these before when he came here. However, the last time he came to Lingen he was just passing by in a hurry, so perhaps he didn't care at the time. Besides, the caravan will only stay here for one night, and leave early in the morning. Nothing worth caring about. Xuan nodded, burying his doubts in his heart. Go a little past the civilian area toward the center of the county, to a 4-way street and go right. The caravan eventually stopped in front of an inn. Fuxing Inn. The black lettering on the red background sign has slight discoloration and is a bit older. The caravan just stopped. There are a few handymen dressed as a boy hurriedly rushed out to take donkeys and horses. There was even a man with a brocade hat and a big belly talking to old Huang. Apparently the principal fleet comes around a lot. There was a large empty field behind the inn, dedicated to parking goods and wagons. When the carriage was parked in position, the caravan and the inn's handymen removed the reins from the horses and donkeys and sent to the manger for food and water. A large shed was also erected beside the manger, and the planks of the elevated frame were put together. The top is covered with haystacks. It's called a big pass-through, and it's a little cheaper than a pass-through. The caravan's handymen and slaves lived here, taking turns guarding the goods at night. Xuan also wanted to help Sonya give Sonya a hand, and together they racked Kidney Void out. As a result, when he turned his head, he saw Kidney Hollow, who was half a head shorter than him, stretching and nodding at him, hoping this guy can move. Then he laid down all the way. Could it be because of laziness? Mr. Go, let's go inside. Sonya was embarrassed and turned his face away. After all, it was only a short while ago that he had said that third brother was not in good health. As soon as he got out of the car, this guy ran faster than anyone else with his good arms and legs. Entering the lobby of the inn through the back door, he saw old Huang assisting a rich man at the counter. The businessmen who greeted the motorcade were behind the counter with pens in hand to make their registrations. Seeing Xuan, Sonya and the two of them come in, old Huang came closer to say a few words before saying, "Master, this is the gentleman." Deeply nearsighted Master Shi's eyes lit up and he took off old Huang's hold and, "Take a few steps in this direction and arch your hand. My humble self, Shi Zhongjin, meet Mr. Go. I've slowed you down on this journey, sir." Xuan was slightly stunned, not expecting the other party, a big merchant, to be so polite. He was busy returning the salute. My humble self, Xuan, has yet to thank Master Shi in person for allowing Gu to accompany the team on their journey. You're welcome, sir, you're welcome. Seeing the two men complimenting each other, the innkeeper and the merchants of the caravan were shocked beyond belief, secretly guessing what this young man was really about, to actually make Master Shi of the Xin and merchant team so polite. Sonya's eyes were even more thoughtful underneath, and his heart vaguely had a guess. Sir, first drink tea and wait for a few moments. Ishi will come when I've made the registration. Please make yourself at home. Master Shi. Knock, knock. Master Shi lightly tapped the desktop a few times, calling the shopkeeper back to his senses. Mr. Chen, have you finished registering? Do you still need to enter the miscellaneous laborers? Boss Chen wore a brocade hat and had 3 wisps of beard. Hearing the impatience outside of Master Shi's words, he hurriedly put a smile on his face to make amends. No need, no need. Can't we trust Master Shi? Let's continue as usual. All-inclusive bunks, man-size, and 8 rooms on the ground? No, this time we have an honored guest with us, so we'll book 3 heavenly rooms. Master Shi slightly aggravated his tone on the word honored guest. In the past, when the merchant caravan traveled, he himself couldn't afford to open the heavenly room for just one night's sleep. The cheap ones also cost 2 or 3 taels, and the expensive ones can easily cost 5 or 6 taels. The caravan has to pass through dozens of cities and counties. Even a big family can't afford to build so much. But this time, there was Xuan and Sonya's group, so they couldn't be petty. Understood, understood. Boss Qian glanced toward the wooden boards on the nailed wall behind him and saw that the heavenly name sign was empty. Pulling out the register again, he looked at it and was so shocked that his body nearly fell back. Closing the booklet, apologized. It's really unfortunate that all of the heavenly characters have been wrapped out. Do you think we should change it to a ground name? Booked? Master Shi sniffed with an unpleasant face. The Xian caravan came to Fuxing every time they took this road. One reason is convenience. There are special places for goods. Another reason is that there are many rooms at a fair price. Why not this time? Tell you what. Please trouble Boss Qian to pass the word that Mr. Shi is willing to pay twice as much. Ask them to give up 2 rooms. Make no mistake, make no mistake. The money shopkeeper waved his hand anxiously, looked left and right to see no one, came forward and lowered his voice and said, those few people, are not from a simple background. They're probably from the Imperial court. There are rules for entering people's names in the register, and the boy in charge of the register should be able to read people. When you meet a good-natured one, write in a shorter font. If the guest is grumpy, write longer. If you are a jungle child, or a suspected wanted criminal, write your name thicker. As for the dignitaries and officials, the characters should be written in a neat and sharp manner. In this way, it is also good to ask people to put a good attitude, so as not to cause trouble. The court? Master Shi stifled his words for a moment, and could only turn sideways towards Guxian Sanya and hugged his hand. Guxian Shang, Song strongman, why don't we switch homes? When this statement came out, the money shopkeeper was anxious. How could he just watch the business in hand run away? Anyone with a discerning eye could see that. Although Master Shi apologized toward the 2 men, the truth was looking at the young man's attitude. His heart was also puzzled. What exactly was the origin of this Junho Shang? You can actually sway Master Shi's mind? He looked at Gu Xian with pleading eyes. No need. No need. Mr. Gu is not that demanding. Even if it's a bunk, you can sleep in it. Gu Xian was sprightly. He had slept in a chicken coop, so how would he care about this? I've been wandering the rivers and lakes for years. I'm not a pretentious person. Sanya also casually waved his hand. Hey, that's where you'll be staying then. With 3 extra ground-level rooms. Okay. Shunzi, quickly go and lead the honored guests upstairs. The money shopkeeper could not care less about counting, for fear of a late step and then someone to go, and hurriedly called the boy to lead the people upstairs. I'll have the back kitchen prepare meals for the guys. Aha! Master Shi stood for so long the pain of the injury recurred, and his forehead flushed with cold sweat again. Although he had the intention to talk to each other, his body just couldn't hold out. He was meant to bond with Gu Xian. Strong support is counterproductive and deliberate. Arching his hand towards the 2. Mr. Gu and Warrior Son, Shi is slightly unwell. Go up and rest first. Master Shi, please go ahead. All hail the precious. After old Huang assisted Master Shi upstairs, Sonya also proposed a temporary farewell. Mr. Gu, I'm worried that simpleton date will cause trouble, so I'm going to look for him first. Do you want Gu to join you? No need. No need. My brother, who is a good drinker, will go first to the wine shop and have a good time. The temper is greater when drunk, and I fear I have incurred the displeasure of the gentleman again. Sonya gave a farewell and went out the door as well. No acquaintances left or right seemed a bit cold. Although there were still a few people sitting in the lobby, the sight of him was like watching monkeys. Gu Xian estimated that there was still a while until dinner, so he simply patted his sleeves and stood up. When he was about to go out for a stroll, he was seeing Boss Qian, who had given orders to the back kitchen, walk out. Thinking of what happened just now, the money shopkeeper greeted on. Sir, are you going out? Well, Ji's head came to Lingen and wanted to see the customs. Hey, that's not a coincidence. Boss Qian shook his head as if he was sorry for him. If your excellency had come a few days earlier, there would still be peddlers outside at this hour. But, Lingen is not very stable these days, and there are still military masters patrolling at night. If your son is letting off steam, you can go around the neighborhood first, and come back in about 3/4 of an hour when the meal is hot. How about getting an early night tonight, and then getting up early tomorrow to go play? Unsettled? Gu Xian's mind instantly recalled the long box covered with cloth in front of the door. Could there be any relationship between the two? Thanks for the reminder, boss. I should. You have a good time. Chapter 14, Who to Talk to? Fuxing Inn is located in the downtown Sifang Street neighborhood. With Boss Qian's reminder in front of him, Gu Xian did not intend to go too far. Just going to check out the residential neighborhood. Unlike the warped eaves and flat tiles of the Shanjing city, the homes of the people of Lingen County are mostly wooden houses. Passing by the street corner, I saw from a distance an old woman with a walking stick. A smaller, hooded cage was shielded in his arms. Cowering, he turned into a thatched hut and set the cage squarely in the doorway before closing the flap. The door was left open. Behind it was an eyeball staring deathly at Gu Xian. as if afraid he would come closer. Xuan didn't want to ask for trouble and swept forward past the thatched hut. It was already dark and most people couldn't be bothered to light their lamps and go to bed early. Along the way, Xuan was surprised to find boxes covered with cloth placed either on the doorsteps of people's homes, or on the doorsteps of people's homes. Either the door is coated with a dark brown stain, or it does both. Curious, he headed toward a cabin lit with firelight. A figure with a shaking head, reflected in the window paper of the walls, was. At the same time there was slurred reading coming out, mostly a reader who picks his way through the night. Xuan softened his steps for fear of frightening the host family. With his vision now he doesn't have to go too close. Standing 6 feet outside the doorway, or about 11 or 12 paces away, you can just see the black and brown stains that coated the door panels of the scribe. After squinting to focus his vision, he noticed a few pinches of oily, stiff hairs sticking out of the stain. The tip of his nose twitched lightly, and he could still smell the fishy odor if anything. It's black dog blood. Doesn't this stuff exorcise evil spirits? Is it hard to believe that there is something dirty in Lingshan County? It would be nice if it was just one family, but it's every family. And what Mr. Xian said about Lingshan being under martial law and the army patrolling at night. Xuan's heart leapt a bit and the back of his neck fluffy hairs exploded. Not caring to be curious about what was under the hooded cloth, he hurried to the inn at a quick pace. It didn't seem like it when I arrived, but it will seem like such a long way back. The night wind seemed to be a few degrees colder. The wind in his ears sounded like someone whispering his name. Xuan clenched his chest. The knot in his throat rolled with difficulty. You can't scare yourself. People are afraid of ghosts 3 times. Ghosts are 7 times more afraid of people. But the more I thought about it, the more active my mind became. Dead wells, homes, abandoned hospitals. The relevant elements keep rolling around in your head. It didn't come to an abrupt end until warmth flooded around them. The sound of chopsticks, drinking, children playing, the cacophony of voices flooded in. Without realizing it, he had returned to the inn. Seeing that the lobby was filled with people, a couple of playing baby dolls by the door were still looking at him with curious faces. The popularity of the crowd was a bit of a relief. Xuan let out a long breath. Gongzi, where have you been? Quickly, eat while it's hot. Old Xuan walked out of the back kitchen with a black jar and greeted Xuan in a loud voice upon seeing him. Gu went out for a spin. Xuan naturally wouldn't say that he was frightened, pointing at the black jar to change the subject. Uncle Huang, what are you doing? Oh, this is the medicine that his lordship is going to drink. The kitchen stove has a big fire and it cooks faster. I'll have to hurry up and send it up to his lordship. Okay, you're busy. After a few moments of small talk, the hunchback little old man went up the stairs again with a single bound. Xuan would like to go over and give him a hand. The problem was that don't look at his calm face, but his hand was still in the micros. Going over there would just make people laugh. After calming his brain in the doorway, Xuan still decided not to talk about this matter outside. For one thing, Boss Qian, as a local of Lingen, didn't say anything, and if Xuan had talked too much, can't say I'm tired of looking for people. Secondly, he always felt that there was something odd about this, and listening to Boss Qian's meaning, this filth has only appeared in recent days. Not thinking about that much for the moment, Xuan looked around, didn't find a place to sit in the lobby. There were empty seats, but there was obviously a family of 3 seated. So what was he talking about? 2 steps inside, I felt something following behind me. Upon turning around, I saw that it was the same children who had been romping in the doorway earlier, and there were even 2 more. Form a line behind them. Seeing him scatter some more when he looked away. Oh, little kids. Xuan didn't hate it as long as it wasn't a bare child. In his previous life, even when he was older, he was patient when it came to children. He even had the title of king of the kids in the children's playground downstairs. The Fuxing Inn has 2 floors, connected at the top and bottom by a wooden staircase. In the corner at the bottom of the stairs sat a couple of large tanks with the word wine written on the red paper affixed to the body of the tank. There were 3 smaller tables next to the wine vat, 2 of which filled exactly 8 people, and the remaining table, though empty, leaned against the wall with a table full of sheathed swords. If it was an ordinary person it would have gotten out of the way. But Xuan had nothing to fear, instead smilingly walking towards the nearest table and clasping his fists in greeting. Fellow warriors, I wonder if you could spare a corner for my humble self to take a seat. The 8 people who were negotiating in low voices neglected to stop their voices and looked at Xuan simultaneously in an instant. Some people even subconsciously pressed their palms to their waists and felt nothing before coming back to their senses. Sitting against the wall was a middle-aged man with a collapsed nose and a garlic nose, and his face was nothing out of the ordinary. After looking Xuan up and down once, a smirk was squeezed out of his taut face. Of course, please take your seat, sir. Then the collapsed nose waved his hand, and the man across the table obeyed and stood up. Gu didn't mean that. seeing Guxian's line of sight shift slightly to the side of his body. The collapsed nose flinched for a split second, then burst out laughing. It's a misunderstanding on my part, but if you don't mind, please take your seat. It's fate to meet. This. Guxian glanced at the young man who had given up his seat and saw that he did not look disgruntled. Then he nodded stiffly. My humble self. Guxian. Meet the warriors. You're welcome, sir. We can't call ourselves warriors. A certain Fong Si. The collapsed nose gathered his hands and introduced himself. Guxian noticed that he wasn't using the hugging salute of the martial arts. Rather, it is an arch-victimization among the literati or officials. Below Fong Chang, left said, my little daughter Fong Hong. This was the only female among the 6. Fong Rue. All 8 of them have Fong surnames. Can it be that they're brothers? Xiao Air. Add a set of bowls and chopsticks, a pot of wine, 2 pounds of donkey meat in sauce, and 2 plates of 4 happiness meatballs. Collapsed nose beam Fong Si did not explain too much. Neutral voice shouted aloud. Hey, come on. The running boy was quick and nimble, carrying the dishes in one hand and the beaten wine in the other. Guest, the donkey meat and meatballs and sauce will be ready soon. You drink first. Hey, what kind of person lets someone drink first? Although Fong Si does not look good, but his temper is quite mild. With the boy can joke a couple of sentences. The line of Fong surnames was apparently headed by Fong Si, who didn't move his chopsticks. Despite the separation of the 2 tables, the other table had to sit dry as well. I see that you are very different from those merchants, but are you traveling with a caravan? Precisely. Mr. Go wanted to travel around to visit friends on this trip. On the way, I came across the XINN merchant group. Master Shi's heart is kind and gave me a ride. Oh, it's a rare good man among merchants. Mr. is also good at elegance. Fong Si first sloshed the wine goblet with hot water and then poured it out. After repeating this 3 times, before pouring a full glass of wine and handing it forward. Thank you, Your Excellency. Guxian frankly accepted it and touched a glass with him and drank it frankly. However, Fong Si spun the wine cup around and did not enter the mouth, but instead felt amused. It's not good for a gentleman to go out and not be on guard against outsiders. Ha ha, if others toasted Guma would not dare to drink. Your Excellency toasted where there is no reason not to drink? Fong Si stared at Guxian for about 3 breaths, and with each breath the atmosphere became heavier. But after the 3rd breath, Fong Si threw back his head and laughed. If you're so generous, sir, you'll look like a certain family is being petty. Raising his glass, he took a drink and filled it again for both of them by hand, this time saying nothing and taking the lead. Please, Your Excellency is magnificent. Donkey meat and sauce 4 happiness meatballs. Sir, your dishes are ready. Call me if you need anything. The running boy deliberately lengthened his voice to report the name of the dish. He came on luckily. Fong Si was drinking to his heart's content and waved his hand impatiently. However, Guxian said thank you, which made Fong Si even more surprised. Eat your vegetables and eat your vegetables. You guys, too. Fong Gu, don't just stand there. Go and squeeze in with Missy and the others. After Fong Si and Guxian drank a few cups together and gradually opened up the conversation, a veiled reference to why he was treated that way earlier. Mr. Don't blame a certain family for being vulgar, but this world is not as good as it used to be. This robe, not suitable for going out. Guxian's chopsticks hung in the air and suddenly realized. No wonder, Tatong is now plagued by the scourge of evil godly men, and although his robe draws ink treasures, the clothing, however, was still the costume of a Taoist robe. His hoping that I'm the one who punked myself? Guxian slapped his head. He hadn't realized that the underlying problem was so simple. It was also caused by the fact that he had come to this side of the world for too short a time. After clearing up the misunderstanding, the 2 chatted happily, but it was only over a glass of wine and the 2 sides did not talk deeply. Fong Si and the others had already eaten almost as much before Guxian arrived. When the people in the lobby dispersed, he rose and prepared to take his leave. What I have talked to you today has been very enjoyable, and I hope to see you again in the future. Naturally, the next time we meet again, it shall be at GE's invitation. Ha ha, then a certain family has memorized it. Farewell. A group of 8 people arched their hands in unison and bowed, and Guxian returned them one by one. Eyes watched as they went up the stairs to the 2nd floor and entered the east side of the sky room one by one. These military masters are somewhat interesting. I just don't know what government office they come from. Guxian wasn't stupid, plus the fact that a few people hadn't deliberately hidden themselves. Despite wearing a rough hemp dress, the boots under the feet are soap-colored tiger bites gold-patterned boots. This is not something unusual people are qualified to wear, but it was a good karma, and a meal for nothing. In the back of his mind, he thought that he must get up early in the morning and change out of these pitiful clothes first. Are you ready to go back to your room to rest? The shopkeeper has already ordered. Let the little one lead you up. Shopkeeper Qian couldn't figure out Gu Xian's bottom line, and in the spirit of him exporting and leaving the business behind, then he intentionally instructed with the boy. Only then was there this waiting guide boy. Hey, please, no trouble, I should do it. For the first time by the guests so said, the boy immediately smiled a lot of sincerity. The footsteps lead briskly to the south side. Room No. 8 of the Earth character has arrived. If you need anything, just tell me. In that case, Gu Xian really needs it. Speaking of which, I haven't bathed for a long time and my body is prickly and scratchy. Even a little itchy scalp. Please, little brother, fetch some hot water. And oh yes, borrow the scissors again. Hey, the little one will go now. In just a quarter of an hour's work, the boy called for hot water and scissors. Gu Xian cut down a few small pieces of broken silver in his pocket. Crumb's edge when left to the boy as a reward. Don't think less of it. In ancient times, people specialized in collecting psoriasis in wax. Save enough and burn them to get a silver nugget. Simply soaking in a hot bath. The comfortable Gu Xian soaked all his worries behind his head, groggy with some drowsiness, her eyelids sinking. There were footsteps approaching outside the inn. Big brother, you can't even hold your liquor. The familiar loud voice woke Gu Xian up, causing his heart to flare up with an unknown fire. This little Li Kuei is really a bad match for me. For Songya's sake, Gu Xian still endured for the time being. Out of the water he briefly wiped himself off and prepared to lie down on the bed and fall asleep. Yet again. I heard. What are you talking about? Big brother? Would I be afraid of that kid? Humph. Look at his thin arms and legs. I'll make him fine with both of them. Gu Xian's brows furrowed and he was about to get angry when he suddenly realized that something was wrong. By the tone of voice, the simpleton was talking to the same person. But in his ears, there was clearly only one person's voice. That. Kung De Duck who? Exactly. Is he talking to? Chapter 15, Fighting the Compassionate Heart. In the center of the wooden table, the candlestick flame swayed. The silhouette reflected on the windowpane stretched in the candlelight before blowing out the flame. It was late night outside the window, and the people inside should be asleep. Obsessive. The wooden window was propped up a crack in the whisper, and as the cool night air blew along into the room, a pair of thieving eyes peered out of the crack. Gu Xian didn't dare to be careless in the face of the suspected dirty contraption outside the inn. After creating the illusion that the people in the room were asleep, he catapulted his slit down to peer quietly. Kong Dade, that simpleton, was most likely drunk and bumped around a lot when he walked. Even with the lisp, that mouth still blathers. To speak from the bottom of his heart, Gu Xian was not happy to care about him at all. But listening to Kong Dao's words, that dirty thing appeared to be disguised as Songya, and compelled to come after him. How can this work? A gentleman doesn't stand under a dangerous wall. It's better for Gu to wait and see first. Not closing the doors and windows, he pushed the door open with light steps and tiptoed out of the house towards the adjoining room. Room 7 was originally occupied by the 3 Songya brothers, but because of Kong Dao, the only thing left in the room now is a kidney deficiency. Gu Xian stood in front of the door and raised his hand to curl his fingers, but he was slow to fall. Speaking of which, what's a kidney deficiency called? As he was thinking, the door pushed open noiselessly. Gu Xian's awkward line of sight coincided with the expressionless kidney hollow, overlooking. To be exact, it was good that he recalled the other party's surname in time, and arched his hand to remedy the situation. Warrior Yi, Mr. Gu has something important to discuss. I still hope that I can come inside for a chat. Yi Changqiu's dull eyeballs in those deep eye sockets slowly turned downward. The gaze froze and his eyes suddenly widened, even his ever-cold expression cracking at the seams. Finally, he sidestepped out of the way with an odd look on his face. Gu Xian couldn't care less about the gentlemanly etiquette. He didn't even notice that his lapel was half open at the moment. A flamboyant madman look. Entering the room, seeing Yi Changqiu take out the fire folders, Gu Xian snapped out his voice to stop it. Don't light the lamp. Seeing his confusion, Gu Xian lifted the window slit and beckoned for an invitation. Yi warrior, come and see this and you'll know. The Fuan Inn is so festive that it hangs a red lantern on the left and right under the signboard. In the daytime it didn't feel like anything, but now that it was night, the lights were scarlet and a little spooky. It's still a gross moon tonight, and the night is hazy as a veil. A steady, strong black boot stepped into the red light as the nooks and crannies resounded with the sound of old cats purring in spring. 2 steps upward on the steps, and then a violent wobble back. With a slight chill on his side, Gu Xian subconsciously looked with his afterimage, only to see, there was actually a thin, white head resting on the window frame beside him. The shocking scene scared him so much that he nearly lost it, until the human head blinked its eyelids slightly. It's Yi Changshu. He blinked and tilted his head, not sure exactly what Gurhajan wanted him to see. Warrior Yi, listen carefully to what Warrior Kong is saying. A trace of impatience flashed under Yi Changshu's eyes. He was suddenly woken up after a good night's sleep. As soon as he pushed to look at the door, he saw someone who was disheveled. Entering the room was even more of a strange statement to himself. But, considering that Xuan is on good terms with Songya, let's trust him again for the time being. Big brother. Right. I told you that kid was no good. Third brother has also been lazing around a lot lately. So why don't we just beat them together? Yi Changxiu stretched his head to look downward, rubbed his eyes, and finally looked dully at Xuan, eyes full of questions. Xuan said, from what I've observed, it's likely that swordsman Kong has been compelled by something dirty. Let's find a way to restrain him. He thought about how the three were sworn brothers after all. Now that one brother is in trouble, and the other brother's whereabouts are unknown, kidney deficiency, the only remaining soul seed, should be the one to pick up the slack. Unexpectedly, the boy jumped up like a cat in shock at the words filth and compulsion. Look anxious not to see the daytime laziness. Sharp packing some things to seize the door and escape. Xuan stepped in front of the door first. Swordsman Yi, it's not quite right for you to do that, is it? As the two men stood in a stalemate, another slightly surprised voice rang out from downstairs. Second brother? Where have you been without a word? It's Songya, the real Sungye? Outside the window, Songya boldly strides towards Kong Didi, and contact between the two is imminent. Xuan couldn't just stand by and watch people die in the mouths of ghosts. Then he shouted aloud, his voice neutral and thick. Songya, Kong Dao has been compelled. Quickly stay away. Those who were attracted to the sound's attention were not only the stunned Songya, but also Kong Dao, who had a stiff expression. The cold air flowing around his body caused a tingling sensation at the back of Xuan's neck, like a hair being targeted by a snake. Before Songya, who had been alerted, could react, then he saw his good second brother trembling like a sheep. At first it was just the fingers, then the elbows, and then the fat wrapped in muscle all over his body hit the wave swing. Du. Songya retreated as he spoke, and he saw Kong Didi stand on his tiptoes and, the head turns to the left in a bizarre arc. The dark, hollow mouth opened, but a sharp, piercing beeping sound rang out. Buzz buzz. A wave of fear from the very essence of humanity gripped his heart. Ghost. Not seeing any movement from Kong Dao, the sound waves in his mouth condensed like substance, spreading like a wave into the distance. Hoo hoo. Two wind-breaking sounds came one after the other, and two wooden chairs smashed into Kong Dao's body one after another. With two crunching sounds of bump, it shattered into a mess of debris. The window was wide open, and a small round wooden table smashed out of it. A thin, pale figure followed close behind, nearly stepping on the table as it descended, but when it reached mid-air, applying force with a sharp kick of the toes toward the edge of the table. The round table then spun around and smashed towards Kong Didi. Yi Changxiu's body flipped in the air, his white clothes fluttering like a butterfly, deftly dissolving the strength of his descent. He ambled to the ground, his right hand holding the scabbard in the opposite hand, his cold gaze chilling through the ice. Songya came back to his senses, knowing that he was about to get serious. In a loud voice, he stopped. Third brother must not. That's your second brother. Shine dash. The words were too late, and the light silver snake was sheathed like light. Yi Changxiu held a soft-bladed longsword in reverse and stood proudly, with his eyes in the obscure moonlight. The pupils suddenly shrunk as thin as snake pupils. He lowered his body and lifted his steps forward, his body traveling back and forth as if he were a swimming snake. Standing on his tiptoes, Kong Dao did not dodge, and there were hidden veins bulging under his skin. The pot-bellied palms of his hands swept toward the heading arms, but they came up empty, in turn causing his chest to close wide. Good chance. Yi Changxiu clenched on the cracks. Immediately, his breathing was as fine as a turtle and snake in winter. A stream of true qi was mobilized from the dantian into the wrist. The waist was taut and immobile, only causing the wrists to shake rapidly. With the red light of the lantern, the white snake dances around. From 1 to 10, 10 to 100. It's endless. It's like endless. Xuan couldn't see Yi Changxiu's movements, but he could vaguely see blood splattering on Kong Dao's chest. Clothing was even twisted into rags. The blade vibrated, spilling a circle of blood. Touch dash. The heavy body collapsed with an afterthought. Alive or dead? Only then did Yi Changxiu let out a long breath at ease. The hand was shaking so badly at the moment that he couldn't put it back together after aiming a few times when returning the sword to its sheath. Yi Changxiu raised his eyes in the direction of the window, wordlessly signaling Xuan to call for help. He didn't have the strength to assist someone up the stairs. Xuan's expression, however, did not see any relief, but instead grew more and more grim. It's not right. The strange feeling had not yet dissipated. Scanning back and forth trying to find that one weird feeling, his eyes landed on Songya. Songya, just now, when addressing Kong Dao, he seemed to be saying, second brother? It's been so long since I've been back, and at this point in time, Did swordsman Yi leave quickly? Sonya is also a ghost. As the words fell, Yi Changxiu's body trembled, and a palm was suddenly placed on his right shoulder. The cold, chilly air spat at his neck, causing his sweaty hairs to rise and subconsciously want to twist his head away. Do not turn back. There are 3 fires in you, and it cannot harm you. If you turn around and are blown out, that would be the end of it. Amidst the panic, Guxian's words possessed incomparable credibility, causing Yi Changxiu to subconsciously do as he was told. Leaning on the scabbard of his sword, he silently tuned his true qi. In truth, Guxian didn't have much of a backbone, but after seeing that Sonya didn't make any further moves, a little peace of mind. Stories that can be passed down in folklore most often have something unique about them. At the same time, all the fragments in the mind were united. Burlap cages, black dog blood, comp. As the fragments collided back and forth, a guess flashed through Guxian's mind, and he busily stretched his voice to shout, Swordsman Yi, hold on for a few moments more. Mr. Gu will come later. Chapter 16, Retreating Demons with the Xianfa. After rushing out the door, Guxian clapped his hands and bellowed to wake up the crowd. I also ask you all to go out and help Mr. Gu. The sound of the fight had long since awakened the crowd, but all were hesitating upon hearing his voice. They are at a loss as to what to make of the situation. Subconsciously think that if you close the door and cover your head with a blanket, you are safe. Only a few scattered escorts stepped out, but they were in a state of panic with nearly half of their blood qi dissipated, so they could not be of any use at all. Looking at Guxian, he shook his head repeatedly, pressing his hopes against them. A few rooms away from the sky. Strange, why don't we see these officials? It would be much safer to have their help. Now that his life was at stake, Guxian had the cheek to knock on the door and call out, Brother Feng, are you there? The room was empty without an echo. Knock knock. Guxian's heart was anxious, and after a few moments of torturous waiting, a boy who had followed the restlessness to find, he stammered, Your Excellency, those people have already checked out not long ago. There is no one in the room at this time. Checking out? No wonder the collapsed nose said farewell and see you next time at the end of the meal. It is better to ask for help than to ask for help, and if it is delayed any longer Yi Changxiu will definitely be finished. When the time comes, the inn will be full of people who can't escape. Guxian rolled up his sleeves and was about to pull these people to settle down first. After walking to the stairway, a door opened not far away. A short, hunched figure stepped out holding a candlestick and bent down to pay his respects. On behalf of his lordship, I pay my respects to Mr. Gu together. After 3 solemn obeisances, old Huang straightened up and, clearing his throat, he shouted, Get thee out. Don't be a coward, or when this is over, get the hell out. Old Huang's words were much better than Guxian's, and a guest room door opened. All propped up candlesticks out of the crowded hallways. Right now there are high people who may not die, but if you break the door to eat, it will be hard to live in the future. The crowd had been rolling around in the mall for years and had long since developed a thick skin. Even if he was playing dead not long ago, this is still full of smiles and compliments. Outside the inn, the beast chirping and screaming were not like human voices, and it was hairy and frightening to hear them. To ask them to go with the monster to kill is never dare. Can only look forward to the high people. Grandmaster, whatever you want us to do just command us and we will absolutely do it. Right, right. Our lives depend on master. Everyone looked at Guxian with hopeful faces, including their women and the timid children in their arms. Now it's a grasshopper tied to a twine. No one can run away. One can only hope that someone in high places will step in. Where did Guxian have any means? But this would have to stabilize the crowd, or there was bound to be pandemonium. Recalling what he had heard in his previous life, Letterman said, Thanks for the favor. Mr. Gu thanks in advance. Women and children will temporarily evade. The evil spirits are heavy with yin qi and should not be approached. Men of blood and vigor, take up your torches and follow me. Go a few people to the back kitchen to slaughter some livestock and carry them over. The more spiritual the better. Guxian took the lead down the stairs after he finished speaking, and a few escorts from the caravan. Raising a hastily made torch to follow behind. Old Yellow fetched the past backroom chores and took a couple of men down to the first floor back branch and turned to the back kitchen. In front of the inn, he pushed open the door and saw Yi Changxiu fighting with the compelled Kong Daud. It wasn't right to say that it was a fight. Yi Changxiu just dodged one after another. When you turn sideways, you also have to be wary that you will be grabbed by Sonya behind you. Although Kong Dide and Sonya are still in human form, they are still in human form, but with their strange demeanor and distorted looks, no one would be able to look at them both as human beings. The escorts approached with torches held high, and Yi Changxiu, who had been dragging the two, lost his attraction in an instant. Kong Dide and Sonya both abandoned Kidney Void and rolled up a fishy wind to rush towards the crowd. The crowd of guards staggered back and forth in shock, making a mess. the torches almost fell out of their hands, apparently forgetting Xuan's earlier warning. Returning to his senses, he realized with hindsight that the expected attack hadn't come. Someone had the guts to look forward and was seeing that it was Xuan blocking the two with his hands behind his back. The guards looked at each other with some heat in their faces. No one would complain if they were told to fight with the strong. That was their duty. But ghosts are so bizarre that they used to listen to them only as jokes. When it really comes down to it, no one has a trick up their sleeve. Someone bravely picked up a torch and stood up after him. It was discovered that the two ghostly creatures didn't even open their eyes to look at them, and both of their eyes were fixed on Xuan. The pressure is off. Seeing that the tall man looked calm, he must have left a backhand. The crowd was pumped up and had a little more guts. Unbeknownst to them, the actual person they see as a tall person has long been flustered into a mess. It's only being forced to calm down by the state of mind. Xuan hadn't paid attention earlier when he was panicking, and he looked again after calming down. In the line of sight, the two of them were as if they were sheathed in a thin, light gray mist. The fog shifted continuously as it came into torch range, and in some parts even dissipated quite a bit, but he didn't have any better means at the moment. If he summoned the golden thunder, he didn't know if he could break the situation, but at least half of the people behind him will be killed. With any more bad luck, they might not be able to split themselves first. Mr. Go! The old man is here. At the time of the stalemate, Old Yellow arrived along with a strong aura of blood. The torch-bearing man made way for them, only to see Old Yellow carrying a barrel in his hand. There was also a cockerel with its neck cut in half and twitching in the barrel. Boss Qian also followed behind, carrying a wooden barrel. Unnaturally, he averted his eyes when he looked directly into Xuan's slightly scrutinizing gaze. This guy is hiding something. Now was not the time to get into it with him, Xuan instructed as he rubbed his eyes to ease the feeling of foreign objects. Good timing. Dump out the contents of the bucket. Hey, come on. Having seen Xuan's frankly staring at the ghosts, all of them had long since taken him as their backbone, lifting the barrel and splashing it forward. The stumps were twitching all over the place, and the blood of chickens, ducks, and fish was mixed with a foul odor. The two ghostly creatures merely swept a glance and quickly turned back around. It seemed that they did not dare to take an interest in it. It didn't work? That didn't work either. Quiet. The master is about to do his magic. We'll just watch. After seeing the mist, Xuan's eyes would itch terribly. It was as if 100 tiny ants were burrowing under the eyelids. The fog on the ghost's body was even surging towards him one by one, seemingly trying to invade his body. The ghostly creature grew bold and even slowly extended its hand towards him. Just as he was about to make contact, the interviewer villain in Xuan's body uncontrollably revolved on its own. The Xianguan located in the Tianchong prana exploded and flashed for a moment, hooking the remaining 3 golden thunderbolts to burst out together. Xuan hadn't panicked when he was staring at the ghostly creature, but the changes within his body at this moment caused his heart and mind to stir. It's killing me. Is this fear that I won't die? No way. We must not release the golden thunder, or we will all die. Xuan sank his mind down, trying his best to suppress the urge to get out of golden thunder. In the outside world, he was seen with his long hair floating up without wind, and his body was shrouded under a faint golden light. A strange feeling rose in his heart, as if his consciousness was severely severed from his physical body, and the body slowly merged into the night wind, leaving only the consciousness floating. This mysterious feeling was not unfamiliar to Xuan, and every time he summoned the golden thunder, he would all have this illusion that he would become one with his environment. Only this time, he tried his best to resist, his cold voice exploding. Take the offering and retreat quickly. Otherwise, do you really think that don't dare to punish the evil? The neutral and majestic voice was not large, but it carried a thunderous majesty and penetrating power. Gusts of echoes swung in all directions against the wind, startling 100 lights. The sound swept far into the sky. It even shook out a crack in the clouds. From afar, the outline of a hairy moon was revealed behind the crack. In a trance, it was as if a large, cold, unfeeling eyeball was peering through the clouds at this place. This night is destined to be hard to sleep, but it always makes you feel as if something is missing. After the sounds of the fight died out, the environment fell into a dead silence. The ragged breathing of the crowd in fear, the cries of birds and insects, the old cats purring in spring, are magnified several times in this context. The only thing missing was the most common sound in the county, barking dogs. Xuan had noticed that there were few dogs in the large county of Lingen. There was not even one in the civilian area. It's anomalous that in another era in a similar context, canines acted as a vigilante that identity with meat animals. Not to say that every household stocked it, but at least 1 or 2 households on a street would keep it. Now, no dogs bark for 100 miles. Either no one is keeping them or they have been slaughtered long ago. Think of the burlap cages in front of homes and the black dog's blood smeared all over the front door. It's not hard to guess what the truth is. Xuan suddenly recalled what the 3 Dan scriptures had said about all spirits possessing a metaphysical nature, and the easiest way to nourish the metaphysical nature, besides honestly drawing on the sun essence and moonlight, it is the gen that preys on other beings. The apparent tranquility of Lingshan County. It is a dog corpse sacrifice to Xian. Based on this, Xuan beckoned the people behind him to come forward and bring up another barrel. 2 golden thunderbolts were forced back into the Xian, and only one was really unable to dissipate. Xuan could only try his best to channel the dispersal, taking a sliver of thunder light into his voice and bursting out. Put the 2 down. Waves of sound rolled and attacked, and a few wisps of electricity arcs leapt up and dissipated in mid-air, crashing into the 2 men. This sound was as if it was not Xuan speaking, but an echo from the heavens. The 2-body surface mist cannot stop shaking and trembling, and finally dissipated like a windy willow. Puff dash puff dash. Sonya and Kong Dao's figures flopped to the ground one after the other. The crowd in the inn looked on in disbelief, but none dared to go forward to check on life and death. Help into the inn. Xuan stood in front of the door and looked into the distance for a long time. His thin back was like a strong pine on a cloudy cliff. Lonely and proud. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Chapter 17, Aura is a ghost. Suppressing the heavenly thunder back into the Xianguan was far more difficult than channeling it out. Xuan stood still for nearly half an hour before barely stabilizing the only 2 remaining golden thunderbolts. There are only 2 cards left. No, there's still one more golden thunder to be left in the sky-rushing spirit as the mother seed. Try to avoid encountering this situation until a new golden thunder is birthed. At this moment Xuan was also wondering, why did the dirty things come close to? The foyer will be involuntarily active. Is it a subconscious move in the face of an approaching crisis? But the dirty things attached to the Sonya duo were behaving strangely as well. Xuan did not sense its malice. There must be some connection between the 2. So tired. Forget it. I'll think about it later when I have time. He hadn't felt it when he confronted the filth, but this was when Xuan realized that he was seriously out of it. Even more exhausted than when he first conjured the golden thunder. His eyelids almost glued together. Some tickling. Rubbing his eyes, Xuan looked at the fallen duo as heavy shadows, and turned around with slight displeasure. Would any of you like to lend a hand to assist the 3 warriors? The group at the inn was really useless, except as shocked, guinea pig spectators, just stood there dumbfounded. The word has been said twice, and not even one person has stepped forward. What's the matter? Still want to let him go to Jinjin personally assist not? The crowd hadn't fully recovered and looked at Xuan with both awe and excitement. Scared like this? You're not really going to let me carry it myself. Me. A small, flat man held his hand high in the air and pushed his way out from behind the crowd to ease the awkwardness. Master, you can do whatever you want. Iron Hammerer, will listen to you. Iron Hammer's face is simple and honest. However, he played a small mind, intending to brush his favor in front of Xuan. Brother Iron Hammer doesn't need to call Master so polite. That's a bit too god-awful a name to go out in today's world and get beaten up easily. Seeing that Xuan had actually memorized Iron Hammer's name, another 10 or so volunteered to come forward immediately. There was no shortage of jealousy staring at the little flathead. I didn't expect that. You're a thick-skinned one who can still play tricks. It doesn't take that much, just come 4 or 5 to assist the warriors back to the guest room. After saying that, seeing that Xuan was going to take a step forward to go back to his room to rest, the crowd then consciously parted to either side to make way. At the stairs, Master Shi, clad in a regimental robe, was holding the stair railing and gasping for breath. A cold sweat of weakness covered his forehead. However, he still firmly arched his hand toward Xuan and bent down to worship. Mr. Shi, on behalf of the entire Xian merchant team, thank Mr. Gu for saving their lives. Master Shi is polite. You have injuries. You can't make it. Xuan was startled and, hastily, he quickly stepped forward to assist. He took a liking to the middle-aged man he hadn't talked to twice. Few words, polite, and a smart guy who never tried to do anything deliberately. There is no way to repay Mr. Ge's great kindness. Mr. Shi has kept it all in his heart. Master Shi patted his heart and tried his best to hide the excitement under his eyes. From the first time they met, he then had an esoteric feeling, if he could get involved with the person in front of him, it must be a heavenly chance. For this reason, even if the other side wants the family business that he has built up over 2 generations, Master Shi would also smile and hand it over with both hands. And Xuan, although love money, but have degree, although thick-skinned, but has always advocated with people. It's natural not to do anything that would bring both sides down. Master Shi appropriately displayed his attitude, carefully observing Xuan's demeanor, slightly relieved to see no disgust on the other's face. As soon as he thought of the encounter before him, he asked with apprehension. Mr. Gu, what do you think we should arrange next? What how to arrange? You, a big boss, still need to ask me? Gu Xian was so tired that his mind was swollen at this moment. It took a while to react before he saw Master Shi frequently looking behind him, and in that direction were the three Sanya brothers, still worried about that. Cough. Gentlemen. Gu Xian cleared his throat to attract everyone's attention. Speaking aloud, he said, you all need not worry. Gu Mao has already removed the stolen goods. The three warriors have been entangled in the fight for a long time, and will later take off their strength for a while and it doesn't count as a big impact. Sanya 3 people? The most serious injury is Kong Dade. Yi Changxiu that 110 swords, although the power to avoid the vitals, but it still left quite a few blood dodgers. Secondly, it was Yi Changxiu. He was momentarily careless and, being slapped on the shoulder by the filth attached to Songya's body, the whole person's essence shriveled up under the breath contamination. But just like Gu Xian said, the three of them needed to recover for some time in addition to their injuries as well as their essence. There will be no more people passing on. In order to put the crowd at ease, he made up a couple more sentences. If you all still have concerns, stay out of the sun more for a few days, and men should lock up their sperm and abstain from sex. Women and children drink plenty of hot water and eat more hot meat, such as lamb. Sure enough, talking nicely doesn't convince this group. The words he made up off the top of his head caused the eyes of everyone present to light up, worried that he wouldn't be able to remember. Boss Qian even leaned over the counter and took out a pen and paper and took it down word for word. Rest early. Gentlemen, we have to continue our journey tomorrow. Gu Xian and Master Shi exchanged glances and added softly, we must hurry before it's too late. They were all smart people, and with only a subtle reminder, Master Shi nodded in mental comprehension. Both of them swept towards Boss Qian almost at the same time, and what they thought in their hearts was even more surprisingly consistent. This ironically has something to hide, but there's no point in trying to figure it out after the fact. The most important thing right now is to control the money boss first. We can't let him report to the officials. Gu Xian was worried that the people in the county government would want him to exorcise the evil spirits when they learned of this, and he didn't have that ability right now. And what Master Stone was thinking was that it had been hard to make the initial connection. He couldn't afford to let Gu Xian leave. Each of the two men's minds snapped, and in front of the counter, the money shopkeeper who was moistening his hair with a brush in his mouth inexplicably shivered. Boss Qian offered to let a few people have the sky character room to play nice, but neither Gu Xian nor Master Shi, nor even any of the merchants in the caravan, had any intention of coming back to Ling'an County. Inside room 7 of the Earth character, the three Songya brothers had all been briefly treated, restricted by the times. Even Kong Dade's injuries were simply bandaged up with a simple compress. At the moment, Song Kong and his wife were lying horizontally occupying the large bed, and Yi Changxiu sat on the only remaining chair in the chamber, his dark circles under his eyes heavier again. There's no need to worry, Master Yi. The two of you, Master Song, are only contaminated by filth. Rest for a while and you'll wake up. You rest early too. Gu Xian yawned and waved his hand as he was about to take his leave, but as he was turning around, but then he heard a flutter behind him. It was Yi Changxiu who fell to his knees. Swordsman Yi, what are you doing? Quickly get up. Gu Xian was truly speechless at the ancient people's problem of kneeling without moving. Don't they say a man's knee is golden? At this rate, it's only a matter of time before the price of gold dries up. After Yi Changxiu's lips wriggled twice, he actually opened his mouth and said, Sierra your son, Mr. Gu. You can talk? Gu Xian blurted out in shock. Realizing that it was a bit abrupt to say so, he immediately remedied the situation. Swordsman Yi, I don't mean that. Why do you say that every word has to be in 4 tones plus a paired sound? No wonder you don't usually open your mouth. Yi Changxiu seemed to know that his accent was not pleasing, pursed his lips and stopped speaking. Looking at Gu Xian with only burning and determined eyes, he was sure that the other party would be able to receive it. Rest early. Being stared at uncomfortably, Gu Xian closed the door and left. He doesn't want to understand anything. Just after returning to room number 8, Gu Xian collapsed onto the bed with his eyes closed. After a while, tired eyes but open again. Just, can't sleep. Is the bed too hard? He stared blankly at the ceiling, obviously physically exhausted to the point of exhaustion, but without a hint of sleep. The marvelous feeling of being sleepy and tired but unable to sleep was still the first time Gu Xian had encountered it, even if, in a previous life, he had been sent out of the country unexpectedly by his sandy-haired boss, tortured by the sand sculpture problem again for 3 days with only 3 hours of sleep. He still managed to get through it with his big heart and sleep when he said he would. But now, while his flesh was tired, his spirit was exhilarated. Instead of losing sleep and consuming himself internally, Gu Xian simply sat up straight away. Cross your legs in a 5-centered. skyward position, adjusting his breathing, stretched and long, consciousness gradually, if at all, freed from the bonds of the physical body. Gradually sinking and sinking. When consciousness reappeared, Guxian's equal-scale inner viewer villain was suspended in mid-air within his body. Located at the top of the head is the Sky Rush Prana. Guxian leaned his consciousness over to take a closer look, and was surprised to find that in the basilica, the only two remaining golden thunderbolts were much thicker. Before, they were only as thick as a small thumb, but now they were almost as thick as a middle finger. And the color gets purer and brighter, and presumably the power has increased. It seems to be getting contained? Compare that to the several changes in Golden Thunder. For the first time, it was mistakenly summoned within the Chenha temple to accommodate the entry of the heavenly rushing prana. For the second time, the means were tested on Mount Sitting. The third time, he forcibly dissipated a golden thunderbolt, channeling only a wisp of electricity into his voice to roar out. Could it be because of the manifestation of sainthood before men? Guxian guessed so. The first time and the third time, both came about because of the ability to show off in front of people. The conjecture may not be accurate. After all, I'm new to the immortal cultivation path. No one to teach me can only feel the stones to cross the river. But at least there's a direction now. Incredibly satisfied with this change, Guxian maneuvered his consciousness to exit the heavenly prana realm. He did not intend to continue his enlightenment. He was still a mortal body today and could not carry the strain of days of labor. What's more, the immortal cultivation that Guxian pursued was free and easy. With thoughts of the world, being overly obsessed with the speed of growth can instead breed demons and leave behind a trail of mischief. There are other changes? The mind moved, and the consciousness once again approached the inner viewer villain. Noting that the Genkan located in front of the forehead of the villain, i.e., the spiritual wisdom prana, should have been an imperceptible chaos. It's actually quite clear now. The mind associated the gray mist covering Song and Kong. It's because of the ghost Shi? Guxian was startled. He also thought of what the Sandan Sutra said, that in order to activate the Xianguan, one needed to be induced by spirit. Combine that with the throbbing sensation in your body when you look at each other. Spirit Xian. Same origin but different names. Spirit is the surface. Xian is the root. Enlighten Xian with spirit. Guxian withdrew from the inner view muttering and whispering. A pair of bright eyes shining frighteningly bright in the candlelight. With his brain running at high speed near overload, he finally got a scary guess. Aura, it's a ghost. Chapter 18, You. Go and kowtow twice to Mr. Status, 403 from https://q5/b258388/7666030. HTML failed to retrieve the content of this paragraph, no text content. Chapter 19, Dog-Faced Man, Breeding Reiki. Status, 403 from https://q5/b258388/7666031. HTML failed to retrieve the content of this paragraph, no text content. Chapter 20 The Little Monk Sees Purity. Modification in progress, please wait. The magistrate nodded at his words, straightened his coat and sat back down, and, waving his hand, he signaled the two unaware magistrates to go down first. Clearing his throat, he said, You did well to think to seek me out in the first place, but that gentleman's status is unusual, so it's not good for us to disturb him. I heard that the court has sent someone down to deal with this, so just wait. Unusual? Boss Qian opened his mouth and suddenly remembered that the Xian merchant team and their party had come from the upper capital. There are also rumors that the Emperor Light invited the four sides have the ability to really cultivate the fight. The title of the state teacher, Murphy, that gentleman is? Boss Qian didn't dare to speculate, and after feeling the gradually cooling line of sight, he hurriedly knelt down and said, Then, magistrate, the grasshopper will retire first. Aha! After the money shopkeeper left, the county magistrate did not continue to correct the paperwork. Thinking about it, picked up a cup of tea and sent it to his lips, only to find that the tea spilled as much as it could. Finally, he looked at the direction that Boss Qian had left, his vision cold and gloomy. On the other hand, the HSAN caravan did not follow the official road that leads directly to Guanshan Road after leaving the barrier. Instead, they chose a different path. Because of last night's incident, the people of the Xian merchant fleet did not dare to enter the county again for a short period of time. With this in mind, Master Shi made a temporary diversion last night, and after the fork in the road, choose the path toward the west. Although taking this official road will make a big detour and arrive a few days later than the scheduled plan, and it's mostly mountains and deep forests with few people, but it also avoids some counties and spends its days in the wilderness. Of course, before changing lanes Master Shi had inquired about Guxian with apprehension in his heart, but the latter was meant to be far away from Shangjing, and right now he hadn't decided where to stay. so it was not bad to follow the merchant caravan and continue traveling for some distance. But he was wondering all the same, why wouldn't people in this era worry about demons but fear people? He had tested Li Mingju with the horizontal bone compared to the immortal edge before, and the latter had a blank look on his face. It's not at all clear what a demon is. Is it hard to believe that demons don't exist in this metaphysical world? It felt a little strange to just Guxian piecing it together based on known information. It was as if the world before the Jedi heaven and earth passage was separated from the present day by a large blank space. Let's explore it slowly later. Guxian felt something in his heart and silently planted a seed of curiosity. In the carriage, after Guxian had sucked all the aura out of the two of them, Sanya was also slightly a moment behind Kong Dede, rubbing his head to turn awake, still a little uncomfortable with the sudden change of scenery, and suspecting that he was still asleep. Then he pinched himself hard. Hiss, sir, what are we? Sonya's brain went blank, and the memories in his mind that, still stuck on parting with Guxian and going in search of Kong Dede. Seeing this, Yi Changxiu briefly and succinctly explained last night's experience to the two of them once more. After hearing this, Sonya and Kong Dede were all astonished and clasped their fists in solemn obeisance to Guxian. Sir above, please take a bow from me / Sprinkler. The two of you don't need to be polite. Your injuries have not yet healed. More rest is the right thing to do. No wonder Sprinkles is in so much pain. So that's how it is. The belly of Kong Dao's finger pressed down on the wound. It hurt straight to show his teeth, but instead of having a complaining expression on his face, he greatly grinned and embraced Yi Changxiu. Ha ha, third brother. It's not in vain that second brother loves you. He actually sacrificed his life to save you at the critical moment. Ergo take this favor all the way down. Yi Changxiu struggled twice to no avail and was bear-hugged tightly. When he helplessly turned his face sideways, he happened to meet Guxian's line of sight and was somewhat ashamed. You were the fastest runner last night. People are hard to break up. Guxian didn't say anything to stir up trouble. It's funny to think about these three brothers. The oldest one worrying about being a mom every day. The second one is a fool. And the third one, a pure plastic brother. After the two of them had a good time, Kong Dade let go of Kidney Hollow, who was about to give up his breath, wriggling his ass to make way for Sonya, flopping down on both knees when, even the carriage trembled for a moment, and the steeds neighing in fright. With both hands clasped high in the air, he bowed respectfully 3 times towards Guxian. This time Guxian did not refuse. It was only right for him to receive this gift. Kong Dade hung his head and appeared loud and sullen and solemn. A certain person has no eyes and does not recognize that a true person is in front of him. The Makoto is extremely well cultivated and has repeatedly ignored my provocations. Certainly deserve a beating. Deserve a beating. Saying that, Kong Dade took advantage of the fact that the crowd hadn't reacted yet, punching his injured chest bang several times in a row. The slightly improved wound crumbled and streaked with blood. Instead, he pushed through the pain and threw punch after punch at the wound. Why would the great warrior Kong do this? Why would you do this? Although Guxian was also angry, it wasn't this method of killing people. Sonya did not plead with Kong Dao this time, but instead arched his hand at Guxian to dissuade him. Don't stand in the way. Sir, this is the punishment this brother of mine deserves. Until Kong Dade hammered himself 99 times without dropping a single palm, finally staring into a pair of bloodshot bull's eyes. The knot in his throat rolled to force the churning chi and blood down. Bang! Kong Dade cracked his big bloody mouth and laughed. Big Brother always said that a certain family should convince people with virtue. A certain family didn't understand, so they changed their name to Great Virtue on their own. Sir is forgiving and generous, and does not take into account a certain person's villainous behavior. But I have done wrong. Just deserve those punches. Swordsman Kong is rather strict with himself. Get up. Guxian personally assisted, and this time, Kong Dao trembled as far as his strength to stand up. When sitting down some detachment, another ass crouch on the floor. Dean laughed. Hey, someone's fist still has enough force. Guxian's heart was a little complicated. To say that he loathes Kong Dede, that's natural. Who wouldn't hate being targeted for no reason? But this man is true, and when he says right, he is right, and when he says wrong, he is wrong. If one makes a mistake, just play the game. Such people cannot be described as bad, much less good. Their view of good and evil is simple and crude. If you want Guxian to make a comparison, it's an early Lu Zhishan, not a killing talent like Li Kuei, reckless in his actions and irascible in his personality, yet possessing a simple view of good and evil. Really, the reason why he targeted Guxian from the very beginning? Or is it because Hongdi borrowed the name Immortal Master to deliberately send out a signal to target the Divine Magi? But even after understanding, Guxian's attitude towards Kong Dao still didn't get too much better. Although the ghostly chi in your two bodies was removed, it left behind a lot of hidden dangers. In the future, you should get more sun in the afternoon. He also looked at Kong Dao and added, "As for you, you won't be able to drink alcohol for a long time recently. Consider it an apology to Gu." "Ah, mister." Kong Dao's face immediately sank, and he was a bit tearful. He was a good drinker. Now he was forbidden to drink, which was worse than killing him, but it was all said to be an atonement, and he deserved to hang his head in response. A certain family is all at the mercy of the gentleman. After chatting for a while longer, Xuan mentioned the issue of greatest concern. "By the way, you two warriors, how did you contract ghost chi? But what kind of people have you dealt with?" Now that he had reasoned that ghost chi was aura, then Xuan hit upon the idea of catching ghosts. Wouldn't it be great to wait for the Golden Thunder to spawn a few more in the future and level Lingshan County in one fell swoop? Sonya pondered for a while, but in the end, he shook his head in agony. "I really can't recall what I experienced yesterday. I only remember going out to look for this naive cargo, and then, can't remember anything." Kong Dao on the other side also nodded repeatedly. Right. A certain family, too, just remembers scolding. Folding after Mr. Sulking alone. "I went to a restaurant in Lingen to have a drink. When the caravan was about to arrive, he settled the bill and made peace. And then I bumped into a strange man. And the man." Kong Dao's whole body suddenly stiffened in place, his pupils suddenly narrowing from the fearful memories. That man, he even has a dog's face." "Dog face?" Xuan was instantly reminded of the dead dogs in Lingen County. Right now, this was mentioned again. It's not up to him. Sonya Yi Changxiu and the two of them could see that something was wrong, and Kong Dao actually breathed a little. Then they teamed up to punch in a trace of true chi to assist in the conditioning. Luckily, there was no need for Xuan to make a move, and Kong Dao took a big, violent breath, as if he was waking up after drowning. He held his head in hindsight until his voice trembled. That dog-faced man hit a certain family, and a certain family didn't care. But that dog-faced man even took the initiative to punch a certain family. A certain family had to return fire. However, whether it's fists and kicks or true chi, all strikes to that strange man went into the mud, but he merely waved his hand, and a certain man lost his intuition. Hearing this, Xuan secretly said that it was true. The aura was really raised by someone. Even that is a group of people. An organization. They took aim at Jianghu children with high force in addition to using Xian as a sacrifice. I'm afraid that they are using their true chi and dantian as seedbeds to raise aura. If so, Xuan, under the strange realization of the three, suddenly turned his head to look in the direction of Lingen County, murmured and whispered, "Looks like someone is doing the protecting, huh?" Chapter 21 Seeing Buddha in the Western Lands. Season Prefecture. Yes, extremely. Old Huang stroked his palm and laughed. His hunchback straightened up a few points with pride. Sticking out his thumb, he praised, "Mr. Gu is the man of the hour. Right. With Mr. Shelter, any danger can be passed safely. I've been much lighter these past 2 days, and I'm sure it's also because of Mr. Blessing. Oh, I was just saying how there are no bug bites at night, so it's because of Mr. too." No, at a critical moment, the usual guards who only put on a show rushed out to add to the chaos. Gurun Runxian had a black line on his face, and had a strong urge to say what was in his heart. "I'll be a what's his name and I'll be a tall man? Higher man, I just want to run away now." He can't practice martial arts now, and he can't practice immortality. Although the vision was strong, it was highly likely that it would cleave itself to death first. He was like the body that caused trouble, and everywhere he went, there were problems. Who would think of running away if they had the power to push through everything? However, whether it was the little monk, old Huang or the escort and others, they trust him too much. It's as if they can cross even a heavenly barrier in front of them as long as he's there. Xuan was afraid that they would continue to blow it off and hastily changed the subject. "Master Seeing Pure, I wonder where you came from." The young monk scratched his head at the words, attracting Xuan's attention. "The brains are round and shiny and look good in the hand, and I wonder if it sounds crisp when you knock on it?" The little monk naturally couldn't hear his presumptuous heartfelt voice, and still had a smiling and pleasing look on his face. The young monk is weak in Buddhism and cannot be called a master. Although these two words are quite nice, this answer gave Xuan a whole lot of joy, not realizing that this little monk was also a wonderful person. The mouth says no, but the heart actually looks forward to the title very much. The little monk put his hands together and bowed forward again with a solemn expression. The little monk came from seeing the Buddha. See the Buddha? But the western land of seeing Buddha? Master Shi's voice came from the back. Seeing him covering his abdomen, Lao Huang rushed up to assist. Ishi had also traveled to the kingdom of seeing Buddha when I was young. Master Shi sighed and sighed back then. It was about 10 years ago. Shi Mao passed by with the merchant caravan. Ah, that's really a pure land on earth. Although the country is small, Everyone respects the Buddha, honors the Buddha's teachings and observes the Buddha's rituals. No one closes their homes at night, no one picks up the road. Sure has also been to a Buddhist temple that seems to be called Great Joy Temple? There is also a Master F Asian who has interpreted the sign for Sure Mao. Accurate. Very accurate. Aye, good sir. You know Zen Master F Asian? Commonly recognizing acquaintances. The young monk joyfully put his hands together and bowed. The heart is free to see the Buddha on the mountain. The young monk is also from the Great Joy Monastery, and has even heard Zen Master F Asian speak about the Moksha Prajna Paramitha Heart Sutra. Haha, this world is truly marvelous. How can there be this kind of fate? Master Sure clapped his hands together and hurriedly greeted the two men as they headed for the car. Quickly, Mr. Gu and little master seeing pure. Let's talk in the car. Being invited out loud, Gu Xian couldn't refuse. Plus he was equally curious about the little monk. Then he said goodbye to the three Songya brothers with a slight arch of the hand. The three of them also knew what to do and didn't dwell on it much. The carriage in which Master Shi was in was quite a bit smaller than the rear, but the level of luxury was unknown how many grades higher, and only Gu Xian's car could be compared. 2 complete tiger skin blankets were spread over the chairs, and the carriages, in order to facilitate the resting of Master Shi, deliberately hole into a bed. On the ground there is also a thin smoke-dense incense burner. The odor smell although fresh and elegant but inexplicably on the head. Presumably it has a concentration as well as an analgesic effect. Remembering that there is a young monk. A monk. Master Shi was quick to push the tiger skin rug tumba under the chair and hide it. Mr. Gu and little master, please take your seats. Only after the two were seated did Elder Shi sit down. But his face couldn't help but twitch for a moment. Back stiff and tense cold sweat. Master Shi is not well enough to lie down. We are all acquaintances here. There is no need to be formal. Gu Xian knew about his physical condition and couldn't help but be concerned. The young monk also noticed the abnormality. Good scholar, is your body in pain? Master Shi smiled and waved his hand. It doesn't matter. It's just that some days ago Mr. Shi was inadvertently attacked by an outlaw. He said, it took a beating and is much better now. The mind is free to see the Buddha on the mountain. The young monk joined his hands and recited. From the monk's sleeve, he pulled out a knuckle-thick bamboo tube. Good scholar. This is a medicinal ointment that the young monk brought from the Great Joyful Monastery, which is miraculously effective in healing injuries. Please take it. Not good. Not good. Master Shi had repeatedly shrugged off the medication, which the young monk had obviously used for himself. He took it to say no. Take it. Good scholar. You have a destiny with our Buddha. The young monk typed a Buddhist verse. Furthermore, the young monk has vowed to do one good deed a day. Today it is not the little monk who helps the good monk, but the good monk who helps the little monk to accumulate virtue, which is great compassion. Then, Mr. Shi will thank young master. Master Shi learned to bow with his hands clasped together and, the movements are fairly standard. The heart is free to see the Buddha on the mountain, and if Shi arrives again in the land of seeing Buddha, he will go to the great joyful temple to return his wish. Goodness, it is enough for a good man to have this heart. The two of them chatted for a few moments, talking about the changes that had taken place in the kingdom of seeing Buddha over the years. Hearing that the Western land is also in a state of war, but none of them intruded on seeing the Buddha. Master Shi sighed. There really is a true Buddha's blessing. When he turned his face, he saw Gu Xian, who had been eating melon for a long time, with a big smile. Ha ha, see how confused Shi's brain is. See, little Master Jing. This is Mr. Gu. The two of you continue to talk in detail. Gu Xian didn't care about that, but seeing that the young monk had faced him, he smiled and returned the salute. Seeing the net little master, I wonder why you've come. Following what the young monk had said not too long ago, he was able to surmise that the great joyful monastery where he was from had a true cultivation method. Gu Xian had been looking forward to meeting contemporary cultivators for a long time, and now was a good opportunity. The little monk looked resourceful, but he was still a child by nature. With the help of him, he might be able to get a glimpse of the true nature of the immortal cultivation world. The heart is free to see the Buddha on the mountain. Seeing Pure shook his head slightly. I'm not afraid of Mr. Big's jokes. In fact, the young monk doesn't know why he came. It's all about what the host said, that the young monk should come to the Central Plains and travel through it. As the young monk traveled along, he saw that the 100 flowers had blossomed 3 times. This year is the exact time it was agreed to return. 3 years? So, the young monk went out on his own at the age of 10? Gu Xian looked at seeing Net with some pity. Brains is so pathetic. No, this kid is pathetic. As we continue to talk, Gu Xian involuntarily softened his voice, and tried not to look at the little monk's brain. He talked about what he had seen and heard along the way, and what happened in the Buddha's land. Even Gu Xian got the idea to follow and meet the Buddha. But then I thought about the tens of thousands of miles away and quashed the idea. Winnie. While the three of them were chatting in the carriage, the guards who were scouting ahead of them suddenly sounded alert. When he lifted the curtain and looked, he saw a few pedestrians carrying packages on their backs and hurrying ahead of the road. This is not in front of the village and not behind the store. Suddenly appeared a few pedestrians on the same road. Be careful for tight. I sent someone to ask around and found out that there's another Qingshan county near here. And this group of people were mountain people from down the road, traveling to get into the county to pick up some things. After hearing this, Master Shi looked at the sky in slight contemplation and inquired to Guxian. Mr. Gu, it's time to replenish the caravan's food and water bags. Why don't we go into the county and make a slight adjustment? Arrange for more men to be stationed at night as it is. The Xin merchant caravan had a full population of over 100, and the food and water sources they needed to consume every day were massive. Bringing too much will delay the trip, so you can only bring less at a time. Temporary replenishment after entering the village and the county. And these days are spent sleeping out in the open day after day, with food and water sources in severe short supply. Again, the caravan was delayed for some time because of the little monk blocking the road. I don't think I can make it to Surabaya County before nightfall. Right now, since there is a Qingshan County, it's not bad to go in and adjust, all at Master Shi's disposal. The young monk, unsure of what was going on, cocked his head slightly. The heart is at home in the mountain to see the Buddha. Clear Mountain County is said to be a county, but it is only a little larger than a village, surrounded by mountains on all sides. Access is difficult, far smaller and poorer than Lane County. There are only 2 old greaseball handles at the mouth of the city. After taking the tariff and bribe money given by Master Shi, he let himself in freely, not even bothering to check. Qingshan County. This is the first time Shi has been here. After ordering someone to find an inn, Master Shi, stroking his beard in remembrance, although he had been in business for many years and traveled outside, but mainly went in the direction of the south and north, and on this side of the western lands, where there is nothing to trade at all, because of the scarcity of supplies, take less of the official road to the west. After waiting for a while, Old Yellow returned on his dumb donkey. Master, there is only one inn in this Clear Mountain County, and it's not good. Let's take a look first. Old Yellow, you go lead the way. When I arrived, I realized that the inn was not much better than a bed and breakfast, probably because it had been unoccupied for years. It was missing repairs in many places, and the roof was leaking a few holes. The boy was probably seeing so many people for the first time and didn't know how to react. Or the shopkeeper hurried back and personally led the crowd to see the room. The more Master Shi looked at it, the more dissatisfied he became. The rooms were shabby and small, and moldy in many places. Only the sky room was better, uninhabited and completely empty. But you can only find BNBS in Cheongshan County except for this inn. But the living conditions of those will only get worse. I'll trouble you all to make do for one night tonight. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Guxian smiled and waved his hand. Lodging to deal with, just deal with it. It is not yet late in the day. There were still quite a few vendors outside. He had long wanted to go out and have a look. Hey, then sure, we'll make the arrangements. And this time, tell the people to prepare more food.